Welcome to Season 7 of True Blue Conversations with your host, Adam Bloom. Real talk with those who pledge to keep us safe with grit, sacrifice and determination. Let's get on with the show. This episode of True Blue Conversations is proudly brought to you by Loudon Private Wealth, the team trusted by professionals, veterans and families across Australia to build real long-term financial security. If you want to take control of your finances, protect your future and build real generational wealth, Loudon Private Wealth are the people you want in your corner. They don't do gimmicks, they don't do hype, just smart strategy and honest advice coupled with real-world experience. Check out the links in the description to contact Warren and the team via loudonpw.com.au or 02 8313 0418. Now let's get back to the show. This episode of True Blue Conversations was brought to you by Dead Reckoning Rum, creating individual rum releases commemorating the diggers lost in Afghanistan, proudly supporting veterans, donating 50% of all their profits to veterans organisations around Australia. Look up Dead Reckoning Rum, buy some bottles, connect via Instagram and Facebook and give them your support. Now, let's get back to the show.
G'day, welcome back to True Blue. Today I'm coming to you live from Queensland and I've actually got a very special guest on, and this veteran had a very distinguished career, a long career, and is a decorated serviceman, and he has served in many units throughout the Australian Army and deployed on multiple deployments over his 22 years, and it's an honour to be in his house and tell his story. So, Michael Smokey Dawson BM, welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate it.
Mate, it's an honour to finally catch up with you, mate, and I wanted to do your podcast in person. So, mate, thank you for welcoming me into your beautiful home. And, mate, before we get into your long and distinguished career, let's go back to a young Michael and talk me through, life growing up as a young fella.
Well, born in Brisbane, southeast Queensland. My father was an industrial chemist, and he was also studying at university at St. Lucia. My mother was in the banking industry. My father also was a former football player for the Queensland Reds, and he had a small opportunity to play for the Wallabies back in the early 1970s, late 1960s. However, the game that he was going to play, his workplace, which was the CSIRO back then, a government organisation, he was about to play South Africa. And this is late 60s, early 70s. Apartheid was happening still. And his workplace said to him, if you want a job at the end of the game, I suggest you don't play. And so he took his job. And back then, rugby union was not paid. You never got paid. So he forwent the opportunity to play for Australia and kept his job instead, and continued working. So he never said that he played for Australia, but everyone that I speak to, all his friends and all his family, they all said, "Yep, your dad played for Australia." But he was in the training team, he was in all the other games pre the South African game, but when it came to the South Africa game, which was going to be played at the RNA Showgrounds back then, he never played it. He had to knock it back.
Isn't it funny, mate, how times like that, I was born a few years, many years after that, but you hear about it, and you see what happened to Nelson Mandela and how he was treated and so many others. And I can see for your dad, it would have been, well, back then, do I, not being paid, do I risk my job that is my livelihood to provide for my family, or do I play a game that I love? And
that's right.
Yeah, hard decision, but
it was. So he ended up after that. He ended up just doing a couple more games for the Queensland Reds, and then I think it was around when I was born, 1974. That's when he kind of put football in its past, because for a lot of rugby union players back then, as I said, they never got paid. He got offered to be paid by the Rugby League, the National Rugby League. It was a Balmain offered him in 1965, offered him $32,000, which he declined. He loved rugby union. And I think St. George also offered him about the same amount as well, and he knocked it back. He just didn't want to play. He played rugby down at Drummoyne, and he also played down in Melbourne as well. But no, he knocked it all back. He had a Christian Brothers upbringing, Morris Brothers, Rosalie. He was a Rosalie boy, and it was drilled into them. All good Christian boys play rugby union, and that's what it was for us. Even myself, I played rugby union when I was a young fella. I used to play for Jeeps at the Gap, and I think I played with what's his name? Was the coach of the Wallabies? Struth. I forgot his name. No, I feel bad about that. But I did. We had some good players on our team when I played. I stopped playing rugby for club around about when I was in Year 5. So I went to not Morris Brothers, but I went to Padua College, which is a Franciscan college. And so we're all of the Roman Catholic faith. My mum was a staunch, and her family was staunch, like she did the Salvation Army and all that sort of stuff as a kid, and down in Adelaide, that's where she's from. Dad being from Brisbane, it was always Christian Brothers, Rosalie. And so, yeah, we went to Padua College because it was close by where we lived in Chermside. My elder sister, who was from my dad's previous marriage, she also went to Mount Alvernia, which is the sister school of Padua College, Franciscan faith. And then my younger sisters, Michelle and Teresa, they also followed me in the schooling, St. Anthony's, Padua, St. Anthony's, and then they went Mount Alvernia. And then after I left, I went to Wavell Heights because Padua College was a rugby league school, which my dad tried to change on multiple occasions, even with his influence. Stan Pilecki was a good friend of the family. I remember Stan Pilecki coming to our house all the time. And he and my father would have conversations with the principal of Padua College and convincing them that going to the rugby union side is a good Christian thing to do, sort of thing. So, and we did. There were a few occasions I recall back when I was a young fella in Padua Primary. The principal of Padua Primary was a rugby union, fan, and one of my dad's good friends was one of the teachers there. And so with them combined, with my dad and this teacher, and along with Stan Pilecki and a few others, convinced the principal of the primary school to put us into a rugby union competition. Right. And my dad was the coach, the whole lot, and we had... it was so... Like, for me, it was normal having, like Stan Pilecki's would come along to the game, and my dad would be there, and all those that knew rugby union from and this is back in the 80s, so the 70s and 60s were still pretty raw for everyone, and they'd see my dad turn up and they'd just be like, this is not going to happen, we're not going to win against you guys, and we'd play a few games, but the secondary school, no, they were... It was rugby league. That's where Paul Fatty Vorton used to go to Padua.
Yeah, right.
So Paul Fatty Vorton was a Padua boy, and he was a rugby league fanatic, as you well aware.
Yep.
So the principal was kind of coattailing, that sort of success. So we never... And I ended up going to Wavell Heights after that secondary school for my final years of school.
What were you like at school? Were you a scholar?
No, absolutely not. So
I think everyone I've had on, mate,
no.
First responder veteran, is never...
I was good at the things I liked.
Yep.
So I was good at mathematics and physics.
Yep.
Because my dad being a scientist, I was good at physics. I was good at mathematics. I was okay at geography, but everything else, history, no, wouldn't have a bar of it. Doing languages, didn't like it. Did music. I used to play the drums, the piano, the saxophone, the clarinet, the flute, and that's about all I played. Padua being a very musical school as well. We used to play all those instruments, and that helped with my mathematics. Music and maths come hand in hand. I ended up doing... my dad actually put me into mathematic competitions. So there used to be these annual national mathematic competitions back in the 80s. And Dad would just bring because he was with the CSIRO, being a government organisation. They would have all of these, they would put out these mathematic competitions for young people to get into science.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
and so Dad would bring these mathematic competitions, and Dad would just say, right, I need you to do all these by tonight, and by tomorrow night we're going to do this page. And I saw it as extra study because my dad was, it was every night you have homework. If you don't have homework, I'll make some for you and you'll do homework. And I was just like, I just want to go out and play footy. I just want to go and play cricket in the backyard. And he was just like, not until you've done this page and that page. And so that's what it was like for me. And I guess out of, not resentment, but I was just like, oh, all right, then I'll do it. Just, and I did it. Inadvertently, I was actually teaching my brain these patterns in mathematics. So he would get me to do my times tables up to 20. So in school they teach you up to 12 times tables. I did up to 20. And I would have to do that every night. And then Dad had this board, a number board up to 100, and evens were blue and odds were red. And then he would then make me, choose all the prime numbers and then all the other series of and he would show all the different sequences and numbering and stuff like that. And then later on I got into binary, which is another numbering system, which wasn't really taught at school.
So are you thinking at this stage of going down the uni path, or
no,
not?
Absolutely not. No.
So did you have family members that had served in the military? Where did that come from, Mick? Where was that inkling to go and join the army?
I think a lot of my dad's friends had joined, were in the army, especially the ones at football.
Yep.
And where my dad played football, which was for Wests in Toowong in Brisbane, a lot of the army football players either played at uni, which is St. Lucia, or Wests. And so I just recall as a kid, we'd be playing, Dad would be playing or coaching the West Football Club, and you'd see a Huey land on the other football ground, and I was just like in amazement of this helicopter, and I was just like, wow. And then 2 or 3 guys jump out, and it was a couple of the army blokes, coming into play for the seconds or for the So that's what it was like. That was back in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
Right, so there was some difference. I showed interest, so from mathematics and from my sciences and physics, I got interested in aircrafts, and I was fascinated with aircrafts. And Top Gun came out in 1986.
Yes. Yep.
And
great movie. It is a great movie.
And I was hooked.
Yep.
I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to fly a plane like that. And so Dad took me to a friend of his was in the Air Force, and he took me to the Amberley Air Force Base back in the late 80s. And I was just, the F-111s, I was just like, oh my gosh,
How do I do that?
Yeah, like I want to do that thing. And then, of course, in the 80s, we had back in the 80s, we used to have in Brisbane called the Rawana Festival.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And it's a festival of the river. And it's an Aboriginal festival that turned into a commercial thing that eventually became Riverfire.
All right.
So Riverfire started way back in the 80s, and it was called I think it was Kawana or Rawana Festival.
Okay.
And it was a festival of the river. And it was to celebrate the Indigenous or the Aboriginal festival of the river and the story of the river. And I think in the 80s they brought in the F-111s, and the F-111s quite literally used to do an afterburn from Mount Cootha, and from St. Lucia side, and all the way down towards South Bank, and then head off down towards Mount Gravatt, turn around, come back, and then do it all the way up, past the Story Bridge. And it was 2 flybys. And then in the late 80s, Triple M, back in the day, thought, oh, we'll add music to this, and they did. And then it just exploded from there.
Yeah, right.
And it became Riverfire. Everyone wanted to come down and watch the F-111 do a big burnout, massive burn off.
Yeah, unreal.
And I remember it used to happen on a Saturday night. It was in the first week of spring, I think it was, in September. And so, and of course, like with my dad, we every Saturday night we went to church. That's where we went. And we went to Wavell Heights Church, and it was up on a hill, so we could see down into the city. So after church, church would finish, and then we would be out, because I was an altar boy, and so I'd have to get out of my robes and then quickly run outside. I remember the first time I saw it, I was standing on the hill looking down towards the city from Wavell Heights and just seeing this afterburn, and I was just like, oh wow, oh my gosh, it was. So for me, that's where I got the initial push. That
Inkling
was like, I was just
military.
like, oh, I'd love to do that. And of course, what a lot of Dad's friends would come over for dinner, and they'd be like, "Oh, so you want to join the army, do you?" And I this was, I was in year 7, year 8, and I was like, "Yeah, wouldn't mind." And they're like, "Right, stand over there and don't move," sort of thing. And I'd have to stand in the corner, my hands by my side and standing there, and while Dad and his mates there drinking their port or their sherries and having the after dinner mints, and they'd be like, "Don't move, you're not meant to move, if you want to be in the army, you can't move." And I'd be like, "Oh, I don't like this shit, this is awful." So I kind of, with their encouragement, I kind of got steered away from it. I had my idea of what it was going to be like. I had the Top Gun idea. I was like, I'm going to turn up on a motorbike and, get out and put on my leather jacket and fly away. And it was just
and chase the women. The women will come to you.
And I'll play beach volleyball and with shirt off. And they're like, "No, it's not. Stand in the corner and don't move." I didn't say you could talk. And I was just like, what is this? Nah. So I steered away from it in, initial push, late 80s. And then by the time I was in my high school years, especially late high school years, I was getting into music. Music kind of took over for me. So much so that I just saturated myself with music, all types, any genre. I just became, and I looked at it in a mathematical point of view. So I was looking for the patterns, and that's what music is. It's just patterns, and then putting them into the right place to make it sound right, which is what mathematics is. Mathematics is a set of patterns to make good of what, explain this and explain gravity and explain, centrifugal forces. There's reasons for it. So that's how I got into it, into the music side of it, and so then I decided that I wasn't going to finish year 12. I'm going to go straight to college. I'm going to go straight to TAFE. And I ended up going to the School of Audio Engineering.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Much to my dad's he was bitterly disappointed. He thought he wanted me to be physics. You can go to St. Lucia University, do physics, and you can be a... And I was like, no, physics is also in music. Like in the speakers, the physics there is amazing. And he was just... He wasn't disappointed. He was just like, well, you could have done,
You could have done better, son.
Could have done better this way, because my sister, my older sister, she followed Dad's path, and she went on to do industrial chemist, but now she's a pharmaceutical chemist.
Yeah, right.
And she audits laboratories around the world. that's her job now. My dad was industrial, so with CSIRO, and it was petrochemicals. So chemicals that are formed from, or petrol, basically anything from sugar all the way through to styrofoam. Was made from petrol. Plastics, PPTs, PPEs, all sorts of chemicals, and then it was into laundries where chemicals that can remove stains without degrading the quality of the fabric. So that was for him, that was his world, and so that's what he did. But for me, it was music. And so, I went to, after finishing, I never finished year 12, I decided to leave. And in year 12, and I went to the School of Audio Engineering, and I ended up doing live sound first. So I did my Cert 3 or Cert 4 in live sound. And we would go to concerts and we would mic up concerts, and so we'd have the studios at Lane Park. So just around the corner from Lane Park was where the studios were, where we practice our craft in the studio, and that was that really opened my eyes to a completely different type of world. We would have bands would come in, and for free they could record their songs because I'm learning how to record.
Right.
So for a particular part of my course, I had to learn how to mic up drums. So all I did was mic up drums, and I would, a band would come in, and you'd write the week before or the day before, you'd look in this big book, and in the studios in the foyer there was a big book where bands would just come in and be like, Friday night, 11 p.m. till 3 a.m. Recording of Starfire Express. I was just like, oh wow, that sounds quite musical. I'll put my name down as the mic to drums. So I would put your name down, and you'd have to put it down. Michael, drums configuration, and so then I would come in, I'd turn up, and there'd be bands sleeping in the foyer because their session would be at 4 in the morning.
Yeah, right.
And they just come from a pub session, and then they just quite literally go straight to the studio, sleep in the foyer, waiting for their turn to go into the studio to record their album for free.
Wow.
And that's what it was like back then.
Yeah.
And so, we had all these different bands, and so I would, from 11 p.m. till 3 a.m., I'd be miking up the drums, and then the actual professional audio engineer would be in there, or their own audio engineer would be there, and he'd be like, righto, I'm going to show you how we put the reverb on the snare, or we're going to remove the reverb and make it come in reverse so that it sounds like it's going away from you. And I'll be like, oh wow, and so I learned all this on the job. And then we used to do it for live sound. So I'd mic up Pearl Jam. Pearl Jam came to town, so I'd go and help mic up Pearl Jam.
Yeah, wow.
And it was you're doing ambient miking. So ambient noise is just all the microphones that are in the air above the stage to get the atmospheric noise, right?
Yeah, right.
It adds clarity to a song or to music, especially when you got part of the crowds thing. But we would use microphones that would be either parabolic, meaning they capture all around sound, or they would be directed, microphones that are directed. And so we would learn all the dynamics of a microphone, pull it apart, study it, and try to make one into a directional one, or bidirectional, or parabolic, or all-round sound, or we would have it just as a little pinpoint one, and they were all had a specific task.
Yeah, right.
Some with, with coverings on it, and others that would have that would be either with XLR connectors, or they'd have all different pin connectors, and so we would, and each one had a different type of sound, and also the cable running from it was very important, and how many twists and turns are in it, how many revolutional twists are in it to the microphone. We learned every dynamic of a microphone to the sound desk, and a sound desk is important. And we pulled it apart and we put it back together, and that was what I was learning. And I ended up getting friends. One of my mates on the course, he ended up getting a gig, or a permanent gig, with Festival Hall in Brisbane. And this was when Festival Hall was still in just across from the old Myer Centre. And when when I was doing my degree in audio engineering, so I was learning how to be, I had to go and learn music, how to write music, how to, I had to kind of elaborate on the piano and how to be, how to appreciate the nuances of a piano strike, all this sort of stuff. It was really in depth. It was quite in depth, and this is for the degree. For me, it kind of got not boring, but I was like, oh, well, where's the
what's next? Or
well, this is not like I want to do what like my mate's got a gig at Festival Hall. He's now got a permanent job at Festival Hall with a Cert 4 in audio engineering, and I'm now doing my degree, and I'm there going ding, hey, like and then you'd have to do a thesis on not a thesis, but you'd have to do a little thing. The C major is this, and it is good, and it accompanies it with the other majors. But if you make it a minor or a minor less, then I was just like,
you're like, oh, bored.
I was like, no, I was. Everyone was, listening to, Bach and Mozart and all these sort of things, and then they were going into, all the older rock and roll bands. But for me, back in the 80s and 90s, my genre that dominated for me especially was hip hop, rap, R&B.
Right. A bit of rock too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I was going to say the 80s,
absolutely,
that was
so
rock heaven.
For my Cert 4, my final test, I had to convert a rock and roll song and make it pop with using the original raw recording.
Oh, wow.
So I chose Noiseworks, No Lies by Noiseworks.
Yep.
Love Noiseworks. I met them a couple of times when they came into the studio to record their songs, for the courses. And yeah, I chose Noiseworks, No Lies, and a lot of synthesizer in that, So what I did is I placed the synthesizer on the cymbals. So every time the cymbals would play, you'd hear the synthesizer as well. So it's just called placement, and I ended up doing it on the hi-hat. So every time the hi-hat played, you would hear it. And then I moved it to the toms, or I moved it to the bass, kick bass, and I was just showing them at how you can complete rock and roll song and turn this into an 80s glam pop sort of song.
Right.
And I did it, and my instructor was disgusted in me. He was like, how dare you do that to Noiseworks? Like he was good friends with Noiseworks. He was like, I'm going to let them know that you've done this. So,
well, it was an assignment. You got to.
They're expecting me to do it to an American band. Like, don't you ever do an Australian band again? No, it was all tongue in cheek. But
right.
So that's what so yeah, rock and roll definitely for me, but also hip hop. And I recall whilst my because we also had day school and night school for the audio engineering, and I remember I had a night assignment to do, and it was a lot of mathematics, but my head wasn't in the space at that time, and so what I had to do was I had to come up with the dB loss. I had to come up with a dB loss of a microphone that is positioned 2 meters from a door that's ajar at 45 degrees, that is soundproof, and a speaker that is placed 3.5 meters in the center of a 5 by 6 meter room that's got carpet on it, and the ceiling has carpet, and the walls are soundproof, and the decibel rating from that speaker was at it was 25 decibels at a certain amount of wattage. What is the decibel rating of this microphone that you were recording it to? And you had to do it mathematically. So there was all these things you had to do. The area of the room, the door ajar at 45 degrees, and the door was a thickness of this, and you had to work out the distance. And it's almost like transmission line theory. So working out the variables and going into log and all that sort of stuff. And I was just like, oh, my head, I could do it, but my head just wasn't in it.
Yeah.
And I was just like...
So is this late 80s, early 90s? Is this what
yes.
we're... Yeah. So, and with... like you're doing this, and then you graduate, and then is the army still in the background, or what?
No, for me, I kind of just let Jesus, take the wheel and let's go. Let's see what happens. Like,
Yeah, right.
I was just, Jesus, take the wheel and let's see what happens. I'm 18 years of age, and from audio engineering, I ended up helping out my mate at Festival Hall for free. I did it for free because I got all these concerts for free.
Yeah, right.
So I was seeing Public Enemy, I was seeing LL Cool J, I was seeing Pearl Jam, and then one of my mates ended up being a guitar technician for Pearl Jam.
Right.
So he went around Australia, but I followed him from Brisbane to the Gold Coast. Every time they came to the Gold Coast or Brisbane, I would go and help mic up Pearl Jam while he's the guitar technician. Oh. So
what a gig, mate! What a life. Not getting paid though. Like
no, but I drink all their riders, which they weren't happy with. So I'd be drinking all their riders. So from that, at the same time, parallel to this, I was also doing martial arts. Boxing. I was down at the Fortitude Valley PCYC on most nights that I wasn't at college or I wasn't, with my mates at Festival Hall or at the Gold Coast. I would be, boxing at the Fortitude Valley PCYC. I loved it. And then I ended up going up to... back in the late 80s, early 90s, there was a place called the Chinese Boxing School, and that was on Ann Street at the Fortitude Valley, across from, I think it was, I can't remember the name of the school, but basically as you come off the Story Bridge, there was this big white building, and that was a Chinese boxing school. And so I would be training there on weekends, nights, and stuff like that. That amalgamated to around the corner in Chinatown Mall. There was another kung fu school, because we did kung fu, Southern Fist Kung Fu, Tong Long. Around the corner was Malcolm Su Kung Fu. Now, Malcolm Su was famous. His infamy came from the Sir Joe corrupt years, where it was a lot of Chinatown corruption happened in the 80s during Sir Joe.
Yes, Sir Joe Peterson. Yes.
Ironically, his house is just in King, just down the road.
Oh wow! Yeah, right.
Not far from Bethany Manor.
Yeah, right. Oh,
just up the road.
There you go.
This is Sir Joe country. Yeah, nationals.
Right.
So I was at the Malcolm Su Kung Fu School doing that Kung Fu, and then doing the Chinese boxing. Then off to the PCYC, and then I was busy. I was hardly ever home, and I didn't really have a job. Back then, you went to the CES, picked a card off the CES board, and went, "Oh, can I do this?" And I'd do odd jobs for 2 or 3 days and get paid $100. The most obscure job I ever did that I recall, and I show my wife Kelly every time we drive past it. It's in Wynnum. There was a fence, and only the top 3 inches is painted, and it goes for 75 metres. I did that. That was $100. Every time we drive past it, I painted that. She's like, I don't fucking care. I'm like, I don't think you understand what I'm saying to you. That's 3 inches of an entire fence paling. I only did the top 3 inches. So that was yes, they're the type of things I was doing.
Yeah.
And my dad was like, "You've got to get a more solid. Like, you've got to get your life, get your shit together."
Because you're early 20s at this stage. Yeah. So
I was. Well,
you're doing what most 20-year-olds or mid-20s are doing, mate. Like,
and then my dad got me a job. I was brick labourer.
Tough gig.
I was brick labouring. Concrete labouring, basically all the construction jobs. I was doing all the construction jobs, and then from that I ended up getting a job. So I was brick labouring, brickies labourer and a concrete labourer, and I laboured everywhere on construction sites. And in the 80s and 90s in Brisbane, construction was huge. Sir Joe's rhetoric was success is the amount of cranes in the city. That was his rhetoric. And so I took advantage of that and just, coattailed it. And, I went from construction site to construction site. Back then, you didn't need any sort of anything. You know, how many bricks can you carry? And you pick them up and he's like, righto, get them up there. And you had a job and you were working. Sometimes you got paid in alcohol. Sometimes you got paid in money. And sometimes you got paid with, a clip in the ear. Just depends on who you were working for and where you were working. I preferred working for the Italians, especially around New Farm, Newstead. They concreting everywhere, and the Greeks.
They would have had good lunches too.
Beautiful lunches, beautiful egg and olives and spinach and yeah. I love working for them. It was good. It was good. And sometimes that's what I got paid for. And that's what I got paid in. I was just like, I got you this life. I got you this beautiful dinner, and what do you want? More do you want? I'm like, I got to pay for this. Get out of here, you bloody. So that was what it was like for me. And I ended up managing to get a permanent job with a glass company called Pilkington. Back then, Jupiter's Casino was getting built. I'd just been built. It was finished in '88, but there was still expansions on Jupiter's Casino, and there was a lot of glass. And I ended up getting a job working for Pilkington Glass, delivering the glass, installing it, going to the construction site, installing it, and putting in all these windows in construction sites. So again, I was back in the construction industry, putting in windows, working with metal. And that's when I first got introduced to unions. Well, actually, in the construction we did, but not that much. The Italians didn't do it. The Greeks never did the union stuff. It was just the Aussie ones. But when I started working for Pilkington, it was just like, well, you're working with metal and glass. You got to be in this union. I was just like, why? I'm quite happy. No, you got to pay $1.50 a week and all this. Oh, okay. So I did, and then. I did that for about a year or two. Not even that. Probably a year or two, or something like that. And then, of course, at my night times were filled with the boxing, the martial arts, and there were a couple of nights where it was free. So I thought, I'll go to TAFE. And back then, you could just turn up and say, what courses you got going at the moment? And they'd be like, we got 2 night courses that start on Wednesday, and you can do that if you like. Yeah, sure. So I would go to TAFE at Gateway TAFE, and I would just enroll in a 2 or 3 week course just because I just had nothing to do on a Tuesday, Wednesday night. I was just because I like to keep my mind active, and if I didn't, it was if I didn't keep my mind active, I had a group of friends that were down the road that were. The way they kept their mind active was making bongs or a funny way in how you smoke hash, and it was making it sick.
It wasn't your thing.
That was not my scene. It was their scene, and I'd see them every so often. Check out this bong. Look at it. It's made out of a box. And you're like, cool, man.
Right, okay,
And so I steered away from them. Wasn't until I went to TAFE and I did stonemasonry, and that followed on from the brickies labourer, and I loved it, and it was great fun. So then on weekends I would go to the Nudgee, was it Nudgee or Nunda? Nudgee, the Nudgee cemetery, and I would quite literally help engrave names into granite or big slabs of stone, and that was how to learn how to make lettering, and then how to make a square ones round and that sort of stuff. So again, a bit of mathematics involved. You have to understand it and get your set squares out and make all these little patterns. So that was interesting for me. I did that for a little while. Or of course the Nudgee cemetery was voluntary. I was learning something, and the reward was you learnt this. That was how they saw it.
Yeah, okay.
I even went to St. Stephen's Cathedral to help fix up some of the side parts of the building. So that was a good learning point for me.
Yeah, right.
Again, all voluntary. I was only getting paid by what I did with Pilkington. And then in 1992, 93, I think it was, 93, I got my licence because I don't know, I didn't avoid, I was just like, not now, not yet. I ended up getting my licence 92, 93. Bought my first car. It was a 1974 HQ Monaro.
Good car, mate.
Yep. And I have a picture of it up there.
Yes.
And that's when I met Kelly. So back then, Kelly and I were in a what would you call it? Car club. Yeah, it was a car club for racing.
Yeah, right.
And we would. I had my Monaro was a V8, it was a 308, and the car club I was in was called the All Fours and Rotaries Club.
Yeah, okay.
And they said, you can't join because you have a V8. And I said, no. I said, I have two membership numbers, one for that side of the V8 and one for the other side of the V8. So I got 2 4-cylinders, and they're just like, "No, you dickhead, you can't be like that." So I ended up buying a TE Gemini with an 1800, and we ended up from that. I ended up going and doing rallies up at Wild Horse Mountain, for just for shits and giggles, and it was purely just to get myself, more accustomed to driving and things like that. Because the way my dad taught me how to drive was the way his dad taught him how to drive, and was the way his dad taught him how to drive. It was quite literally a glass of water on the dash, and he said, "Right, we're just going to go around the car park. Don't spill the water." Oh, okay, don't spill the water. So that's how I was taught to drive. But then, I joined the car club, and that's when I met Kelly. And back then, she was, we were just mates, and I would do rallies on weekends. We'd go up to Wild Horse Mountain, or we'd go up to Belthorpe, or we'd go to where I said we used to go to the other side of just out here near Crow's Nest. We'd go out there. We'd go to Toowoomba. We'd go to just everywhere where there were logging tracks, and they'd set up and have all the permissions. And we would just learn how to do, and we would just rally drive. And so that's what I did just for fun as well. And so this was all. So my life by this stage was extremely compacted with everything. I was hardly ever home, and then I was still doing the Pilkington Glass, and then it was 93. It was at that same time that I ended up getting a job with Telstra. So Telstra put out this tender for cable people or linies, as they called them.
My old man was a liney in Telstra.
That's right. So, and I thought to myself, well, I know, I understand cables. I know the iniquities of the nuances of cables. I thought, Telstra should be easy because it's all copper. Easy. It was, but it was also, you start at the bottom. So I quite literally kind of did like an apprenticeship with Telstra as a lining, and I started off as a pit and pipe worker. So Monday through to Friday, I'd be in the daytime, I'd be pit and pipe work, and then at night times I would be at the Fortitude Valley doing my either be doing my kung fu at the Chinese boxing school, or at Malcolm Su Kung Fu, or down at the PCYC doing my boxing, and then or I would be helping my mate at Festival Hall occasionally, but he kind of got a better gig after that, so I only stayed with Festival Hall not for very much longer after he left, and it was only because I knew other people, and then they kind of were like, "Oh, George isn't here today," and I'm like, "Oh no, I'm just here to help." "No, we're good, mate. We're all right." "No, they got their own set on tonight." "Oh, okay, no worries. I'll just watch." No. You gotta go out the front and get a ticket." I'm like, "All right, okay, no worries. I understand." Yeah. So that was that for me. So the music thing was done for. It was gone.
And at this point, like mid-90s, the army's still peacetime too. So there's no real, you're not hearing anything of
not a thing.
A couple of deployments here and there to Somalia and
Somalia
Rwanda and that, but not until Timor goes up.
In there I've got to add in during the 90s, whilst working for Telstra, through my rally driving, I this guy at one of the rally events came up to me and he's like, because back then I was doing rally driving with the Queensland Rally Championships in a Gemini, and I started getting pretty good and started getting really competitive, and they said to me, "Listen, if you want an invite, because you couldn't just go, you've got to get an invite. If you want an invite to the Australian Rally Championships, you got to pick up your game and you got to, get rid of the Gemini and get something better."
Yeah, right.
So my stupid self, and in hindsight, this was a stupid thing to do. I sold my HQ Monaro, I sold my TE Gemini, and I bought and imported Mitsubishi Lancer GSR Evo 3 from Japan that could only be driven on a racetrack for $50,000 in 1993, 94.
Yeah, right.
The dumbest thing I ever did in my life. The worst thing I ever did.
That beautiful car, mate. I can see it. My old man had one too, and he sold his.
Yeah.
Now they go for nearly $200,000
plus. Yeah. So I sold it for a Mitsubishi Lancer.
Mick, what are you thinking at that point? What's going through your head?
Okay, so I had pipe dreams because I thought Australian Rally Championships, Possum Born, Colin McRae were like big back then.
Yep.
Who was the Mitsubishi driver? It was Carlos Sainz, and I was like, I'm going to meet them. Like they were my heroes at this stage.
Yeah.
And I thought, no, I'm going to get there in a Mitsubishi. Like I'm going to be out there with the Carlos Saints. Wasn't I a fool to believe that I could even consider, being in their same presence? It was so naive. I was naive, and I was young.
Oh, mate, we've all been there. Don't worry.
So I bought this $50,000 Mitsubishi Lancer and started racing in it. And I got my first invite to the Australian Rally Championships, and I could only do so many sets in it. So in Queensland or Canberra. My first race, I blew the gearbox. The gearbox went in it. So it was a DNF, and 3 stages or more of the DNF, you fail. Like it's like, well, sorry, we'll pick you up next set, like down in Canberra. So I had, the first race DNF, gearbox broke, got the gearbox fixed. Second race, I did the bearings in the rear because it was an all-wheel drive, so I did the bearings in the rear, so that was a DNF. And then the third stage, after the bearings are fixed, it was the front bearings that decided to go, so CV joints. It was because I was so competitive and it was so rough, and this car was not prepped correctly. It was for Japanese tarmac and not Australian bush logging tracks, and it was just dying. It was breaking. Things were breaking. It was terrible. Scrutineers were, questioning my, desire to actually be there and all that sort of stuff. So I ended up. I did actually meet Possum Born, and I did actually meet Colin McRae.
Oh, right. There you go.
But it was at the luncheon area, and I saw them, and I was like, I was still in my race suit, and I went up and said, Colin, I said, I'm a big fan of you, and he's just like, congratulations, and that was it.
Yeah, right.
With Possum Born, because he's a Kiwi, he's come up, and I said, mate, big fan, I love you driving.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, sure, no worries, mate. Yeah, hey, listen, best of luck. What are you driving? I said, the Lancer, and he's like, why? Because he goes, best of luck, mate. Best of luck.
Right.
And that was it. I never got invited back. In fact, because of the car, I rolled it once, and I did finish a few times. I finished in, say, the top 15. And with the Australian Rally Championships, they were like, hey, that's not too bad. There's 25, 30 cars. You're in the 15. Like, you're doing all right. But you just need to do it more often.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
so,
right.
I ended up going back to my old club here in Brisbane, and they were like, look, the club president kind of wants you to bring back that Gemini. We don't want that Lancer. I'm like, but, no, get rid of the Lancer.
Yeah, right.
So I ended up converting the Lancer to a street car. She was not too happy about it because I had the HQ and she lost it. She wasn't happy.
Yeah, right.
So that was that. But whilst doing that, what I'm getting at is I met up with this guy who said to me, he goes, I like the way you drive. Do you want to come down to the Gold Coast? I look after the Police Academy stunt show. Do you want to come down and have a go of the cars down there and show the guys how you do your Scandinavian flick? And I was like, yeah, which is a method of driving, turning a corner, go left instead of right and all that sort of stuff. So I was like, yeah, sure, no worries. I don't mind doing that. So I went down the Gold Coast and met up with this bloke at Warner Brothers Movie World out the back.
Yeah,
I didn't go into I went out the back. And out the back is a massive car, like a massive tarmac area. And there's all these cars. All the Police Academy stunt cars are there, but there's all these like Datsun 120Ys, a Ford Capri, a Bobcat. There's a backhoe with nothing on it. It's just the backhoe itself. There's all these weird and wonderful things that some have smiley faces on it. And he said to me, he goes, just drive it around that track, and he goes, do what you do on the rally, but, it's on here, and what I want you to do is I want you to drive it up there and then turn it around here and then bring it back this way. And I'm like, okay, so you want me to do a J-turn? He's like, yeah, do that a couple of times. and then we'll see how we go. So, and I thought it was just, him having a bit of fun, and he had the same interest as me in motorsport. He himself raced himself. He had his own race car, and so I was up and down this car park doing J turns in a Ford Capri, this old Ford Capri. And he comes out and he's like, he goes, what are you doing on Tuesday lunchtime? And I was like, I work for Telstra, mate. I've got a day job. And he goes, take a sickie, and we'll put you in the stunt academy, the police academy stunt show, and we'll get you to come out with the Hot Wheels and do a hot rod. He goes, can you do doughies? And I said, who can't? Yeah. So he put me in the hot rod, which was a 350 Chev, and it was an all-wheel drive, and it had a lock diff. So it just spun. It was not hard to, it was not hard. Automatic, so it was not hard. So I did that. And so he ran me through what needed to be done. And I thought this was all just for fun, for shits and giggles. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm going to do burnout in front of people, So on this Tuesday, I took a sickie and went down to the Warner Brothers Movie World and met up with this bloke. And, he ended up putting me on this little thing on a Tuesday at lunchtime for the Tuesday lunchtime show.
Yeah, right.
And it was not school holidays. It wasn't holidays anywhere. It was just the most quietest. Like, the crowd was probably about 40, 50 people. Normally they have over 100. There was about 40 people. Most of them were Japanese, a couple of Koreans, and some Americans. And the commentator, the compere was doing it all in Japanese to them. Yeah. It was almost like a bespoke show just for them, but it wasn't. It was just that's who turned up.
Yeah.
And so I did that, and then from that I met another bloke who said, you should come down to Carrara Racetrack, because back then Carrara Racetrack was still open. We do, on the weekends, we do stunts. Would you like to get into stunts? And I was like, if it's cars, absolutely, yeah, of course I would. And he goes, yeah, we do cars as well. And he goes, are you any good at, gymnastics, martial arts? And I said, I actually do kung fu and I do boxing. And they were like, perfect, absolutely perfect. Come down. So on the Saturday, I went down to Carrara Racetrack, and on the side of the Carrara Racetrack there was this guy called Colin Handley. Colin Handley used to be on Neighbours back in the 80s, and he was Mrs. Mangle's son who married Jane, and he was in Neighbours for 3 seasons. But he was also a world champion Taekwondo fighter, and he was also a stunt performer.
Yeah, right.
And he was also a stunt coordinator. And he owned the Australian Stunt Academy.
Yeah, okay.
And I wasn't aware of this. I just turned up thinking I was going to be with like-minded people doing cars and martial arts. And I turn up and I seen Colin, and I recognised him from other shows. Like he was on the Queensland Ambulance Service ad. He was on Flight Centre. He was the Flight Centre guy, and he was like. And from that, he kind of asked me, what do you do? And I said, I do kung fu. And he goes, show me, this type of move. It's a type of, a set type of moves. Again, patterns. I enjoy patterns. It's mathematics, music, martial arts, patterns. I'm seeing it all. And he goes, show me this pattern. Show me this thing. Okay. So I'll be doing all this. And he'd come in and join me. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, like holy hell. And he'd be like, that's perfect. This time when you do it, when I come in under do that, flick your head like that. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, boom. All right, okay. Let's get the camera up on this side over here. We'll do it again, and let's see how it works. And then we do it again, and go, boom. And then he showed me back, and it looked like he actually hit me. And I was just like, oh, wow. And he goes, yeah. Would you like to do my stunt course? And I'd be like, oh, sure, yeah. When is it? And he goes, it's from May through to August. And I was like, what are the days? Every day. Monday through to Friday. Saturdays we go to Warner Brothers, or we go to SeaWorld, or we go to somewhere and we do stunts like that. I'm like, oh mate, I work for Telstra. I can't. I got a job, full-time job. And he goes, well, have a think about it. He goes, how much do you get with Telstra? And I was like, I'm on good wicket. I'm on $28,000 at the moment. And he goes, I could get you that in one gig for 3 days. And I was like, how? And he showed me, he told me a thing, and he showed me his stunt reel. He had a stunt reel, and he did stunts for the Michael Jackson movie Moonwalker. He was in Michael Jackson's Dirty Diana video. He did stunts with Chuck Norris. He was in the United States doing all the American stuff in the 80s. And so then I was just like, wow. And so then anyway, I ended up convincing Telstra to have 3 months off work. Provided that at the end of those 3 months that I would, miss out on Christmas and all these little things. Yeah. I convinced them. I did. And, I ended up doing the stunt course. Back then, cost me, I think it was $1,500, but that was for accommodation and all the things that go with it. And, so for 3-4 months, I was solely just doing stunt work, and I was learning how to be a stunt performer for movies. And we did a couple of TV shows whilst we were training. So I was in a TV show called Medivac. I did a car stunt, and then I did a small fight scene. I had to, with the car stunt, going back to at the Warner Brothers when I was doing the J-turns. Well, that was allegedly a audition. I wasn't aware.
All right.
It was how they do auditions. Show us what you can do. Oh, yeah, thanks.
Right.
But I didn't know it was an audition. I thought we were just showing off. Because that's all we did in the stunt work. We just showed off. You know? And so, I ended up getting this job whilst doing the Stunt Academy show course. And it was all kind of melded in because it worked perfectly because part of the course put us on the set for that TV show, and I had to drive an ambulance down Kingston Smith Drive in Brisbane and do a big J-turn at the roundabout near the Mater Hospital and then drive it back up and follow this ambulance. And we did that about 7 or 8 times in this ambulance, and I had to put a wig on to make myself look like the character and wear what he was wearing. And, we ended up doing about 7 or 8 times on set. On the thing, And so then from there, I then ended up doing National Geographic. I had to drive this Nissan 180SX around Mount Tamborine, and I had to drift it up around these corners, and then I had to slide it into a sign, things like that.
Right.
I was. What else did I do? Motorbikes. We did a Filipino cigarette ad for Cool Cigarettes. They wanted a motorbike to jump over a truck that was moving, so it was just a flatbed truck. And we went to a car park at the back of Warner Brothers Movie World and filmed the whole thing there. And then I had to do another one where I was in a Commodore Statesman, and I had to crash through. Going through a shopping centre, and I had to crash through the car park of all these shopping trolleys and smash through them all. Just things like that we were doing. And then Colin Handley made a movie, and I performed in his movie. The movie was called, it's escaped me right now, Casino Reef was the name of the movie. Casino Reef, because he lived behind the casino. Quite literally, he lived behind the casino, and so he called it Casino Reef. And I performed in his movie. I did a couple of car stunts for that around the Gold Coast. He made it like an Australian spy movie kind of thing, and he was the lead spy doing all these things. And I did a couple of fight scenes in the pub that we had hired out and things like that, and did a couple of fight scenes with Colin, and then I did that for. Well, I'm still to this day in contact with Colin Handley.
Yeah, right.
And I still to this day get. He calls me up sometimes. Turns out that Colin is actually a good friend of my uncle, my mum's brother.
Yeah, right.
All my mum's brothers. My mum's one of 9 from Adelaide. They're all into AFL, and my uncles all played AFL, and Colin actually played AFL, and my uncles all did bouncer work.
Yeah, okay.
So they all did that. So they all knew him from that. From the Start Academy, I left Telstra Sorry, I didn't leave Telstra. What happened was, I misspoke there. Let me explain. Whilst I worked for Telstra, I was part of the union. I was in the CEPU, the Communications and Electricians and Plumbers Union, and I got really into it. I got heavy into it. I was the union representative for the area at Newstead, and back in the 90s, after Sir Joe left, there were a lot of protests because Sir Joe never let you protest. But when he left, a lot to protest. So we would set up at Lane Park and have all these protests, Telstra, because they were privatising Telstra in 1995. And that's when they decided, or Telstra decided, once they went privatised, they sacked in Brisbane in one day. They got rid of 5,000 workers. In Sydney, they got rid of another 2,500 or 3,000. Sorry, Melbourne was 3, Adelaide was 2, Perth, and they just went around and they just culled everyone, and they just said no. We're turning these depots into shopping centres now. We're doing this, we're doing that, which they did. Privatised everything and minimised Telstra, and so that was it. Telstra was done for me. I made it all the way up as a technician. I was installing telephony systems into buildings, construction sites, and all sorts of stuff. And then I left, but I had my stunt industry to back me up, and I was like going full time stunt now. Got myself an agent. Got photo shoots done. I thought, if this is it, I'm like, I'm going full hog here. Like I'm going to be the next Chris Parsons or the next, whatever. And whilst I was getting myself out there and getting into parts and movies and TV shows and all that sort of stuff, I ended up Jackie Chan came to Australia and filmed 2 movies here in Australia, one in Melbourne and one in Brisbane. The one he filmed in Brisbane was called Jackie Chan's First Strike. And I did that. Well, let me explain. My mates were on set in the Chinatown Mall. I was still doing my martial arts back to that stage, so I knew there was going to be a big one because Malcolm Sue and Henry Sue of the Malcolm Sue Kung Fu School said, we're going to be doing some traditional things for this movie and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, I know that one. It's my friends are doing stunt work. Yeah, well, you're invited to come along. So I turned up, not to do the martial arts, but I just wanted to get my leg in with the stunt industry because Jackie Chan had the Malcolm Sue Kung Fu... Jackie Chan, I misspoke. Jackie Chan had his Hong Kong Stunt Academy.
Yeah, right.
And they do all the stunts around him. No other stunt people go near him. But he has his own stunt crew, which he trains with, and they all be him. And one of my mates was close to the Hong Kong Stunt Academy cohort. And so I met up with him on set whilst I was having a break. And I met him at the one of the Chinese restaurants. All of them were opened, of course, and he told me where he was. And this is back in the day when mobile phones weren't that, very popular.
It's pre-technology, yeah.
It is, yeah. So I kind of just went on a wing and a prayer. Went, I'm going to see if I can find him. And sure as shit, I found him. And we ended up having a feed. And I was like, I need you to get me on this, set. See what we could do. All right, you're heading off. All right. So. Back on the set, Jackie Chan, met up with my mate. I found him in one of the restaurants that were open in Chinatown Mall. It was big. It was the scene, if anyone's ever seen Jackie Chan First Strike, it's the scene, the funeral scene inside Chinatown Mall. And it was packed. And back then, Channel 7 News kind of put a word out and said, if you want to be in a movie, come down to the Chinatown Mall on Saturday at 11 o'clock and you'll be in the movie. And so, we came down. And I met up with my mate, and he introduced me to some of the people from the Hong Kong Stunt Academy, which are part of Jackie Chan's cohort. And they were just like, this is Michael. He's a stunt performer. He's down at, he's with Warner Brothers, and he's done this movie and he's done that movie. He does Kung Fu with the Malcolm Sue. He's selling it all. And they were just like, you do, they were like, can you do a deadfall? So a deadfall is something happens, you just dead, you just drop. And you can either do it with a twist or with a turn or a backflip or something like that. It's just got a dead drop. You just drop. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, do it now. Show me what you can do. And I was like, in this restaurant. And I was just like, boom, just dropped before. And then one of the Stunt Academy, Hong Kong Stunt Academy's senior guys, they all speak Chinese. And they're just like, hey, and they were talking away. And he was just like, okay, be down at the stairs. We start filming after lunch. Be down there. Get him. He'll help you. So I went with this bloke, my mate, who was a stunt performer in the movie. He actually had a proper role. I was just like, hey, what do you reckon? Can you get me in? And yeah, he did. So he got me in. I got in the movie. I ended up. So the scene was Jackie Chan was just done his diabolical scene where he doing all this martial arts on stilts and knocking people out on the second floor, actually doing it, like knocking them, boom, out with his stilts, and then rolled down into the stairs, and he got caught on the stairs, and he was about to get it, and the goons were running towards him to get him, and the female character in his movie was sort of in between me and Jackie Chan. At this stage, I hadn't spoken to Jackie Chan at all. I'd seen him. We all seen him on set. We just didn't go near him because that's the rules. You just don't go up to any performer and go, "Hi, I want your autograph," because they're trying to remember their lines. They're trying to remember their set. They're trying to remember all this other stuff. And the last thing they want is a fan asking for an autograph and a photo, because it breaks their rhythm. So you don't go, and that's the rules with the movie industry. And so I did. I played by the rules, and I didn't actually didn't bother him, didn't go near him. We practiced it with some other stunties for about 3 or 4 times, and then and I was meant to hit this plate glass window, which was sugar glass, and then that was the scene. And it was going to go for like 3 or 4 seconds of me, dropping dead, hitting the floor, and then she's running up, and then Jackie Chan runs past me on his stilts, and then gets hit by a car that comes in behind it. But that was filmed the following day. But for that afternoon, it was just that scene. And we did it, as I said, 4 or 5 times. And then when it was with Jackie Chan, it was done another 3 or 4 times. And Jackie Chan kind of came up and he's like, no, stop. And he's pointed to me and he's like, no more plate glass, no more. We're not going to do it anymore. You just drop. And I was like, oh, okay. So I quite literally went from getting knocked over and put it into a plate glass to just getting knocked over and dropping. And he goes, that's better. Well, that will work well with the next scene. And so that was me talking to Jackie Chan.
Yeah, right.
That was it. That was. I never said anything. I responded. I retorted. Oh, yeah, okay, no worries, mate. And he's like, okay, good. Okay, let's go again. And so that was it. That was my interaction with Jackie Chan.
Yeah, right.
I managed to get into the Jackie Chan First Strike movie. I was in it for 2.3 seconds. When I show the kids, I pause it for them. So that was that. And I started, and then from there I ended up doing nightclub security. I ended up going into pubs. I got my security license, and from about 95 actually to 2000, every single night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights, I was working in a pub, nightclub, or concert somewhere in southeast Queensland.
Yeah, right.
For 4 years straight.
Yeah, right.
4 or 5 years straight. So every single time I worked, I think every single weekend I was getting into a fight somewhere. And so I went from this, martial artist with forms and things to just a dirty bar fighter. I got glassed, I got stabbed in the leg, down on my leg here. I got stabbed by I was at the Red Cliff Lucifer's nightclub, and we kicked out this girl because she was pissing on the pool table, and feral. And we kicked her out, and as we walked her out, she's gone into the car park and picked up this bottle, and we just ignored her because it was a young girl, and she's come up and she's gone to have a go at us. Like have a go at me and to stab me. She's tripped and fallen and hit me in the leg.
Yeah, right.
I've gone, what the fuck? And then this is the only time I ever hit a girl. She stood up and gone to hit me again, and I've smacked her across the face, and she got knocked out, and we called an ambulance and told her to piss off. So, but yeah, for me it was every night. I got chairs smashed over my head.
So you're thinking long term, I can't do this forever.
No, and by this stage, I met Kelly again. Because Kelly and I were friends for a number of years. And then I met her again in 1998. No, the second time. 98, 99. That was at about the time when I did the house fire.
Yes. Yeah, yep.
So 99, 98, 99... still doing nightclub security, so on and so forth. It was in Brisbane. I was working at Club 131 in the city. I hated working in the city because it's just full of rednecks, and they're just bravado, trying to show off their girlfriends and try and knock out and punch the bouncer. And so each night I'd just be just punching on. And at this stage, I was with a mate who owned a security company, so we were kind of partners, and we kind of owned the security. So we kind of ran the show, and we hired all these different types of bouncers from around We had 4 or 5 venues, 131, the Vic. In the Fortitude Valley, we also had a strip club, which I used to work at. So at first it was fun working at a strip club, but it's like working in an ice cream shop. You get sick and tired of the same shit every day. It's like, right. But anyway, this particular night, working at 131, we finished at about 2:33 in the morning. We left the other senior guys close up for us. And we were heading back to my mate's place who lived at Albany Creek. I was still kind of doing the rally driving thing, but he had a TF Gemini. So we were going to pick up his TF Gemini and we were going to head up to Noosa hinterland and do some driving up in the logging up there. And so that was our plan for the rest of the day. We were heading on, I think it was Keong Road. Yeah, Keong Road. This is, when is it? It's about August, September, I think it is. So it's still winter time, still cool. The nights are still cold. And we're driving down Keong Road and there's a car on its roof at the roundabout, slowly spinning. And we're just like, oh shit, there's an accident. So we've pulled over and there's no one in the car. The car was still running, kind of. All the doors were opened. There was an esky full of alcohol strewn all over the footpath. And we were like, what happened here? Like, we're looking around and
where's everybody?
Where's the driver? Like,
yeah.
And so I'm standing on Keong Road going, this is not right. My inquisitive brain is going, they're here somewhere. Is this car stolen? Have they hurt someone? What are they going to do next? So I just went for a bit of a walk. As I'm walking up Keong Road, I looked up the road about 100 metres and I could see fog on the road. And I thought, fog doesn't jet stream like that. Like, fog just lingers and then moves away. But this was jet streaming. And I started walking a bit closer. And as I got closer, I could hear in the distance, I could hear a help, help, screaming out. And I was just like, initially I thought, oh, it's those fucking car thieves. They've stolen, they've gone down and they're breaking into a home. I'm going to get, and I was like, I'm going to get these bastards. So I bolted. I started bolting down the road. And as I got around the corner, that fog started smelling like burning couch and burning carpet. I was like, what the? I was like, oh, and then my next thought was, these bastards have started a fire.
I know that smell. Yep.
Yeah. So it was it's not burning wood, it's burning fabric, burning couch. That's the smell I was
Toxic
getting.
Smell,
it was acrid. And I'm over 50 metres away at this stage, but it was that thick. I ran down the road and the smell had gone. And I was like, and I'm like, holy shit, I've got to follow the smell. Because the fire was not evident at first. It's a 2-story brick home. Downstairs, it's like the old commission houses. Brick downstairs, asbestos upstairs.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
It was one of those sort of houses with a sunroom out the front with the glass door.
Yep.
Right? Stairs up the side. And then downstairs was another security door, glass door, and it was like a downstairs room. And I just remember walking back going, well, the smell's gone, and I could smell it again. But then I looked to my right, and I saw this house, and downstairs it looked like someone had turned on a lava lamp and magnified the lava lamp. And I was like, why is that orange glow? Like it's a distinct, but the glow went orange, red, yellow, orange, red, white. And I was just like, what the? And that's when I was like, oh, shit, that house is on fire.
Yep. It's taken a minute to...
It did.
Yep.
Because, I don't do it every day.
Yep.
It's when I saw it, I was like, oh, shit. I'm like, oh, shit, the house is on fire. And in the instinct, I was like, do I run back the 100 metres and call out to my friends to come help me? And then I heard again, help. And I was like, fucking hell, I got to go. Like, I got to run in there.
Yeah.
So I went downstairs first and I'm banging on the door and when I looked in, it was
engulfed.
A raging fire.
Yep.
On the roof, I'd never seen roof burn the way it did. It was almost like or waves on the beach, but it was fire on the roof. That's the analogy I use.
Yep.
And I was like, it was. Sorry.
Nah, mate.
It
This
was
is raw and honest, yeah.
It was engulfed, right? So, yeah, I panicked and I smashed the window up top, and I thought to myself, I can get my hand in there, and it was inevitable. I was never going to do that. Then I heard the screams again, and I was like, shit, there's someone upstairs. So I ran up the stairs. I'm like, but do I go in there or do I go up here? And I'm like, well, where are my mates? And I'm like, and I'm then just hollering out, someone call the fire brigade, someone call the fire brigade. And just as I said that, my mates, I don't know how or what, made them think that I was, but they came burling around the corner. He had a VNSS Commodore, and he's come burling around and handbraked and jumped up on the footpath, and he's like, I heard there's a fire. Like, is it on fire? And I said, yes. And he goes, kick it in. And so I've kicked the door in. And my mate, he's big. He's 6'3". He's massive. He does bodybuilding. He's a bouncer. He's massive, right? And he's just gone, kick it in. And I've kicked the door in. And then by that stage, he's joined me, and we're now in the sunroom. And the power at that stage had gone. It was like there was no power into the thing. We've gone to kick this next door in, but we've both fallen on our asses, and we've got back up and we boot, and we've kicked it in, and instant, it was almost like someone had just got a bucket of smoke and gone poof in your face, and it was just burning. It was like, it was hot smoke, right? Hot smoke. Like it hurt, it smelled, I could smell the hairs burning in my nose, I could feel my face, I could feel it. I could feel my face stubble burning, and I was like, "Oh shit!" And I could hear. I couldn't hear anything, but all I could remember. This is the only thing I could remember in my head when I was doing this. Ronald McDonald said, "Get down low and go, go, go."
Yep,
and that's exactly what I fucking did. That's all that came into my fucking head. Ronald McDonald, get down low, go, go, go. So I got down right on my guts, and I'm crawling in, and I'm feeling, because you cannot see, and opening the eyes just burns. It just burns. So I'm feeling, and I felt the table, and I felt over here, and on the couch just here, I could feel someone. I'm like, and I said to my mate, "Here, I got him," and I've grabbed him. And normally because I do bounce when I grab people, the wind comes out of their throat and stuff like that. I can hear nothing. I've grabbed it. No, when there's none of this. There was none of that. And I was just grabbed it, and I was like, "Shit! Have I picked up a fucking dog? Have I picked up a dummy? Like, is like, I don't know what. It feels like a person because I can feel their arms, but they're all like limp as." And he's grabbed as well, and we quite literally just skull dragged her down the stairs and put her on and we've slapped her across. Hey, wake up! Can you hear us? And she was gone to it. We checked the breathing. We checked the heart rate. She had a very faint heart rate, but no breathing. So we've done the CPR. We started putting breath into her mouth, and she started coughing up. She was crying, but she smelled of alcohol. Like she was like it was. That was the first big breath that she gave. It was just. I was just like, oh, geez, like Auntie Joe, to get off the wine. That's what it was. But anyway. She's come too, and we were just like, "Are you okay? Like, what happened? What's going on? What happened?" She's like, "Oh my God, my kids." And I'm like, "Where are they?" She's like, "They're inside." And I didn't ask, I didn't bother, I just went up.
Yeah, right.
I just went straight back upstairs, and I went inside, and now the floor, the carpet is slippery because it's burning, it's melting. And the fabrics in the thing. I'm wearing. I was wearing a white collared shirt, dress shirt, and I had my suit pants on. I think I had nice suit
bouncer
pants.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yep.
With the black boots on and a tie, which I ended up. I think somehow came off. I can't remember how it came off, but I had a tie, but it came off. But anyway, I just remember crawling, and it's like really, like it was melting, like the fibers. And I remember crawling into the kitchen area because that was where the smoke kind of wasn't. It was kind of willowing in this area. And then when I went into the kitchen area, there was not much smoke. Still smoke, but not much. And the floor was lino, and it was melting underneath me. And I was like, where is this fire? But I knew it was downstairs, but I thought, holy shit, has it come this far? So I've then crawled up the hallway. I don't know the outlay of this house at all. I'm just crawling, and I'm banging on doors. Anyone in there? And I've crawled in, and I'm trying to feel my way around, and I'm calling out, anyone in here? You know, and I'm crawling, and I'm choking, and I'm coughing, and my fingers were got that. It was like fairy floss that had melted on you. It was sticky, and it was all, and I was like, fuck this. And I was like, turned around and I've checked all the doors, even the bathroom. I've come back down the hallway and I'm crawling back down the hallway as fast as I can. And I look down to my right and there's a set of stairs. And I'm like, I'm going to go down these stairs internally. And I went down one of them and it was on fire. Like I could feel the flames going up through my shoes and in through my pants.
Yeah, right.
And my pants started to burn. And I was like, holy fuck, that's on fire. That's really hot. And like, I'm not doing that. So I turned around and I went back out the way I came in through the door. And by this stage, when I went back downstairs outside, the lady's gone and my mate, I don't know where he was gone. And I was just like, where the fuck is everyone? So I've gone around. By this stage now, I look outside and there are people standing around. And I'm like, can someone call the fire brigade, please?
Yeah.
Like, please help us. And so I've run around the back and I've come to the back door and I've grabbed the hose, I've turned it on, nothing came out because copper, when it heats up and brass, it just doesn't work. It's pointless. And I saw my mate who was in the backyard and he's hurling rocks through the window to get in through the window that was on fire downstairs. And I've gone in through through the laundry door. And I'm like, come in here. And he's like, all right. So he's coming to follow me. And I've found these two dogs sitting at the laundry next to the at the bottom of the stairs, which was the kitchen's above us. The laundry stairs is here. Here's the laundry. The garage is to my right. To my left is the door and where the fire was when I first got there. And it was a weird sound. It sounded like it was like the wind knocking the door. But it was like the walls were just all like knocking and then it was like crackling and all this sort of stuff, you know. And I just remember grabbing the dogs, giving it to my mate, and he just tossed them out. And then I've gone into the garage and she was in there and she was trying to get her cars. She had I think she had a Toyota Yaris and a Mitsubishi Magna or something like that. And she was like, help me get the cars out. And I was like, fuck the cars, they're
Where's your
insured.
kids? Yeah.
I said, fuck the cars, they're insured. Where the fuck are your kids? And she's like, I just bought this car, help me get it out. And I was like, get out. So I've grabbed her. And as I've grabbed her, my ears popped. And the pressure, like, it was weird. It was like someone had... I don't know if you ever done. You've gone underwater with a bucket on your head to keep the water, the air in there and see how far you can get. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
So the barometric pressure or the pressure had changed significantly to the point where my ears went, and I was like, oh shit, and I was like, oh fuck, and then it was fucking boom, the whole roof upstairs, windows popped out, the all of a sudden the everything upstairs just burst into flames like in an explosion. Like, so it must have been all of that smoke that was just, which fuels.
Combustion and, billowing combustion to then boom.
It was massive. It was huge. Windows blew out. My ears popped. I was like, fuck. And I had shit coming down to the back of my neck. My coals in the back. My shirt was burning. I was like, fuck. And my mates ran outside and I've grabbed her and I ran her out the garage because by this time the garage doors had popped open and now the police are out the front. So the police have arrived and I've dragged her all the way up the driveway. This driveway at Albany Creek, and I've handed it to the cop and I said, hang on to her fucking kids are still inside. And I've raced back inside and he's gone, just wait a minute. And I just didn't bother. I bolted back inside and I went back into the garage and I went back into the laundry area and I then went to grab this door here, but it was too high. It fucking hurt. Like I burnt my hand. I actually got a burn mark on my hand and I couldn't, and I went to push it and I could only go that far. And I just remember looking in there, and it was just like fire was burning. Fire was like wood was burnt so much that it was just glowing. It was just like glowing red. And then I went to go back out the garage. She was back in there again.
Bloody hell.
So I've dragged her back up. We could not go upstairs. It was all on fire. It was gone. She was back inside. By this stage, the cars are on fire. The wheels are starting to burn. And I've dragged her out again. I said, let's get outside. I said, I'm sick of this shit. And by this stage, the fire brigade turned up. And I in my panic, I've just grabbed the fire chief. I open up the first door, and I'm like, quick, you got to help us. The kids are inside, and I can't fucking find them. And these guys, like, so much credit to them, they were just like, hey, mate, it's okay. We're here. Where are the kids? What are they doing? I'm like, I don't fucking know. They're in there. He's like, and by this stage, I'm like, you got to get inside. You got to get your fire things inside. Quick, get the fire. I'll help you get the fire hydrants out. And he's like, no, mate, it's okay. We've got this, right? Are you okay? And I'm like, no, I'm not okay. The fucking thing's on fire. And he's like, I just need you to calm down, mate. What are you in relation to this house? I said, I just turned up and found the lady inside. And he's like, okay, I want you to stay over there with the police officer, and he's going to look after you, right? In that time of that conversation, I've turned around. They've got a whiteboard with magnets with people dedicated who's going into what part excuse me, what part of the house. And I was just like, holy shit. Like, and there they were, mask on, okay, check, and they've got this thing and they've checked off, and they walk. And I was just like, oh, well, thank fuck they're here. You know?
Take a minute. Whew. Yeah.
So that was that. Turns out what happened was, fast forward a couple of hours, went back to the police station, got interviewed, and we got sent back to the fire itself, and they were like, we need you to walk us through. I was there with the fiery investigators, the homicide and arson squad. We need you to walk us through where you were. Okay, no worries. And I showed them every single place I walked. And they were like, okay, no worries, that pans out. And then, I was at the hospital as well. I had to get my knees and my hands checked. I got burns on my hands and knees. I had to get new pants, the whole lot. They were all fucking destroyed. But I was just like, all panicking. And that's when they said to me, like when I was at the fire, they said, okay, did you know that there was a body there? And I was like, no, like I couldn't find the kids. And they said, well, this is the room they were in. So that...
Take your time, mate.
That first room, that's where they were. And I felt like I wasted my time on her, but that's where they were. But they weren't kids. They were 18. And the story goes, what the police told me was that the mother, who was single mother with the two kids, or her kids, and her kid had a partner and another kid. The grandchild wasn't there; had been taken away somewhere else for whatever, I can't even know, whatever. But anyway, it was just the mother, her son, and her son's partner. He'd gone to the Albany Creek Hotel for a whatever, like he did every Friday, Saturday night. I knew him. My wife knew him. He was a local in Albany Creek. I used to work at the Albany Creek Hotel. Yep. We knew him. I knew him as a local. But that night I wasn't working there. I was in town at 131. And, that night he decided, get on the piss a fair bit. And when he got home, he thought, I'll smoke a few cones, because that's what he did. That's what they were like. That was their group, not mine. They smoked a few cones. And then whilst they were smoking the cones, they had... I recall, because he used to buy them from fucking the $2 shop, all those ornamental fucking candles and the incense burners and the oil burners, the ones that look like skulls and the one that looked like a dragon on fire, all this shit. Just the $2 shop shit, right? He lit them all up and then smoked a few cones and then passed out. That, they said, the fire said to me, there was absolutely zero chance by the time you turned up and you said you saw the fire licking the ceiling. And they said they were incinerated by that stage. Like, there was no saving them. He says, don't burden yourself with that. There was... I still feel
I know, Mick. It's
guilty about it, I don't know. Maybe I should have gotten there quick. I don't know. There's all these variables that I could have.
The what ifs, and that's you can't do that to yourself because you know.
So we ended up. So that was that. For me, it was just like, oh fuck, that was pretty intense. Like that was wow, holy shit. That was that. Couple of months later, in fact, a couple of months later, the coroner's inquest. I turned up to the coroner's inquest. By that stage, I'd already received a bravery commendation from the Queensland Fire Brigade and the Queensland Ambulance and the Queensland Police. And I got all these, little awards and things like that. And to me, back then, I was just like, oh, yeah, cool. I wasn't like...
You weren't looking for it. You were there and you were doing a job.
Yeah, that's right. And when I got them, I was just like, oh, well, where am I going to put this fucking thing? And I quite literally put them in my drawer, because that was not me. Like, I'm humble. Like,
100%
I don't look for that at all.
You're not looking for that recognition.
Absolutely not.
That's not who you are.
And so then, so at the coroner's inquest, I got up on the stand and at a coroner's inquest, when the victims are allowed to ask questions to any witness, including the police, fire, so on and so forth. And she asked me a question, and she was at the stage of grief, of anger and blaming, which she never got any counselling. She refused it, so she was just this fireball. She's
like a spring.
She was, yeah. And I turned up there, and she saw me, and she looked at the thing, and she's like, You're the guy that broke my window downstairs. And the judge was just like, what was her name, Mrs. Rumsey or something. He's like, please, Michael is actually the one that saved your life. And she's like, yes, okay, thank you for taking me downstairs. My collarbone's broken, by the way. And I was like, oh, sorry about that. We had to get you out really quickly. And she's like, I had to get surgery. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry about that. And she's like, why didn't you save my son first? And I was, oh, sorry.
No.
I was sorry. I was,
You're furious. Yeah.
Furious. I was like, you selfish bitch. And I did. I went, you selfish, I fucking saved you. And the judge was like, hey, let's control ourselves here, please. And he's then... He's then turned to the thing and he said to her, right, you can't victimise them like this. He helped you. Ask another question.
You're alive today because of what Michael did.
Yeah. And she goes, all right then, why did you throw my dogs over the fence? I said, because they were stuck in the laundry. They were going to die. I said, that was what we did. Well, you broke the washing machine. I'm like, look, I said, your house was destroyed. Like, I felt like, I don't know, the analogy I use is the Simpsons episode where one of the baseball players was saving a lady in a house fire and she was like, the washing machine there and the dryer there. And I felt like that episode. And I was just like, what? Hang on, you ungrateful bitch.
Yeah.
I quite literally saved your life. I breathed clean oxygen air into your alcohol-filled lungs that were, stinking of bloody Camel cigarettes, I fucking saved you. I was angry.
And risked your own life to, that's the forgotten part that I could have left you there and just waited for the fireys and you would have been dead too.
Yeah, I could have got the marshmallows and, popcorn and watched on. But I didn't. I said, so I was angry. I was furious. I was so furious. I just went, you know what? I saved your fucking life. You should be fucking grateful that you're not fucking dead right now. And the judge is like, okay, I think we've had enough here. That's it. We're done. Have you got any other more, relevant questions that are relevant to you about this, this case? And she's like, well, how do I get restitution? And he's like, that's not this court.
What?
Yeah. So then, and the fireys, the police, and the ambulance were all present in the courtroom listening to this. And as I walked, as the judge dismissed me, he goes, "Look, Michael, thank you very much. We appreciate what you've done. What you have done is brave, and that will be reflected later on." I was just like, "Yeah, okay." I didn't know what that meant.
Yep.
I was just like, "Yeah, sure, no worries. Yeah, that's fine." At this stage, I was now with Kelly. We'd became better friends. I went with Kelly, and I walked out of the courtroom, and the policeman, the fire chief, and the ambulance guy who were there, they came up to me and they were like, "Mate, we are so sorry. Like, what a bitch. Like, that was wrong." Like,
definitely.
And this fire chief was like, "I've been to many coroners, but that's pretty raw, mate. Look, we're really sorry that you did that." And I said, "No, guys, don't apologise for her." I said, "Don't ever apologise for something like that. It's not your fault." And they're like, "Look, what you did was really, really good, and we really appreciate what you've done. And it's going to be reflected later on." And I was just like, "Okay, yeah, cool, no worries."
Still not thinking.
No. I'm thinking, I'm going to get invited to a lunch or something, or they're going to let me, push the sirens when I don't know.
Sometimes naivety, mate, is the best thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So that was that. And then by this stage, I was doing the nightclub scene and the pub scene. I was working at the Royal Exchange Hotel a fair bit. Kelly's father, he was in the army as well. He was a cook during the Vietnam War. And all his brothers were as well. And that's when, because I was with Kelly, and Kelly had 3 children prior to that, to me being with her. So it was like, well, now I've got a kind of ready-made family. And we got engaged and stuff like that. So her father was kind of like, "Listen, mate, bouncing nightclubs is not going to support my daughter and her kids." And I was like, "Yeah, right." And I was like, "Oh, what can I do?" And I was still doing the stunt work. And he goes, "Listen, why don't you just join the army? You're good at maths. You understand. You did work for Telstra, you could be a SIG or something like that." And I was just like, "Oh," and I'd had no idea. And I was just like, "Oh, what do they do?" And he goes, "I don't know, mate. They used to talk on the radios a lot." And I'm like, "Oh, I used to work in a studio. I used to do," because in the studio we were taught how to do radio DJing work as well. And I was like, "Oh, shit, I can do that." Yeah. Idiot. Anyway. So anyway, no, I then went, all right, I then, spoke to my mother. Sorry, I missed a part. I want to go back a bit, just digress just a little.
Yep.
1996, my father got cancer. He ended up getting multiple myeloma. Because of his years working in laboratories in the 50s and 60s without the protection that wasn't existent back then, he ended up with a very rare cancer, and he passed away in 1996, July 13 at 10 to 4 at the Royal Brisbane Hospital on the 7th floor in bed 15. So for me, Kelly's dad was kind of the next thing for me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, maybe I should, pull my head out my ass and stop just being this, this bloody grey nomad wandering the earth. Maybe I should have a bit of purpose in my life. I should do something. And I was 24 at this stage. 25. And so, yeah.
So just to go back just a second. So you're, 23, 24 when you go into that house. Mate, I want to highlight here to the younger listener, a lot of 23, 24-year-olds aren't risking their life to run into a complete stranger.
Yeah.
And so that happens, and then this is in the lead up to, and you do, as I said at the start of the podcast, you do receive a Bravery Medal. Does that come when you join?
Yes.
When you join the army?
Later on.
Yeah, right. Okay, so let's go back to you're the grey nomad, and then you're joining up.
So my father-in-law, or to-be father-in-law back then, he said, yep. He said to me, he goes, this is the sort of person, I'm glad she's here, because she'd be in tears because her father passed away a couple of years ago. He said, no, mate, he goes, you can't do this bouncing job anymore. That's not going to support my daughter. It's not going to support her kids. Next week, we're going into recruiting, and this stage it's 99. It's 99.
Yeah,
2000.
So what's his
East Timor's
popped up,
kicked off big time, and that kind of was where I was like, because he was the one who pointed it out to me. Because I was just watching. I remember watching. It was Christmas time, watching the concert with Kylie Minogue.
I've heard about this.
Yeah, John Farnham, Ned. So the guy from the Angels.
Angry Anderson?
No.
No.
Andrew Anderson is Rose Tattoo.
Sorry. Yeah.
Anyway, the Angels, and a few other Australian icons. And I like John Farnham, and I love the Angels. Dogs are talking, all that sort of favourite, and Kylie Minogue was just, Kylie Minogue, and but I was just like, and to me, like I was watching this concert, but my father-in-law was saying, oh, there's 3-4 oh, that's the Ramey guys, and he's just calling out all these things, and I was just like, oh yeah,
like I'm a civilian, mate. I don't know what that means.
I was
lingo,
like,
army lingo.
Yeah, like the analogy I use is I was like the kid off the castle. I was like, I was the young kid. I was okay.
Cool, yeah.
No idea, but and he was there with his brothers, and they're just like, oh, that's so and so there, and I know that, and I was watching them, and they were just getting so animated, and, and it didn't that's when I was just like, oh, there's a bit of a, like there's this brotherhood here. Like I like this kind of brotherhood, sort of thing. And so that's when, after that I was just like, oh, what do they do? And what do they do? And he goes, oh, mate, they do all this. And, oh, look, you can see the APC, that there is on track. And I was just like, oh, shit, okay. And because I've already, kind of had an interest back when I was younger with the Air Force and stuff like that, I kind of said to him, I said, oh, I'd like to join the Air Force. And it was just dagger eyes. You will join the Army, mate. That's what you're doing. Right? We don't join the Air Force. We join the Army. I'm like, okay.
Well, what's the old saying, mate, that I've heard? Army sleep under the stars, the Navy navigate by the stars, and the Air Force go by the stars of the hotels. And I'm saying that tongue-in-cheek. That is...
I know exactly what you mean.
You know exactly,
yeah. So that was it. So then, my father-in-law quite literally the following week drove me to recruiting.
Yeah, right. Because this, and for our younger listeners, mate, the internet, this is pre-internet days.
Like, absolutely.
So, and mate, I know what those days were like because I'm not that. I'm young enough to remember that generation of where the old dial-up internet, and if someone pulled the phone off, that was your connection cut up. As kids today, mate, they wouldn't know what that is. No. And so so you walk into the recruiters.
So recruiting. Now this is, it's a shame it doesn't happen like this anymore, right? I walked into recruiting, it was full. Brisbane City. Recruiting was full.
Wow.
Like...
You wouldn't have that today.
No. Standing room only.
Wow.
And I'm not a word away. Every seat was taken. Every corner was taken. Every wall was leant on. Every pillar was being leant on. Everything.
This is pre-September 11th.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Wow.
1999 this was. I walked in and I was just like, holy fuck. And there's a video up on the wall being played, and it was, all these tanks blowing and all this sort of shit, and it was, the whistling, all this sort of shit. And I was just like, holy fucking hell. And everyone's just, like standing around. And I still remember the three guys, an army guy, an army sergeant, a RAFI flight sergeant, and a naval chief petty officer. They walked out and they got folders in their hands, and they're just like, and the army bloke's going, right, listen in here, turn that shit down, listen in. And everyone's just like, oh shit. And like, everyone, like a lot of people were just like, oh, this, and others were just like, oh, what? I'm like a deer in the headlights. I'm like, oh shit, here we go. Like, I've kind of experienced this shit before when I was younger, when my dad's friends yelled at me to stand in the corner.
Yeah.
So this army sergeant, right, listen in, turn that shit off. If you're here to join up again, stand over there. And quite literally, like half the room stood up and walked over to the other side of the wall. So all these retreads had come back from the 80s and the 90s. Were joining up again. Quite literally, like there was half the room.
Yeah, right.
And he goes, right, the rest of yous, if you want Air Force, follow this man in blue down that corridor. If you want Navy, follow this man in white down that corridor. And if you want Army, follow me. And so I was like, oh, Army, all right, I'll follow him. So And everyone's just streamed off, and then all of a sudden the foyer was empty.
Yeah, right.
It was just a ghost town. And, we're all following this guy down the hallway, and majority of us went army.
Yeah, yep.
You know, and so he put us in another waiting room. He's like, sit there, right? Give us your resumes and all that sort of stuff. Yep, no worries. Okay, there'll be someone out to come collect you in a minute. Just sit there, don't move and shut up. And I was just like, oh, I know this. Like, I know this.
Yeah.
So I did. I just sat there and shut up. And this was an introduction to what it was going to be like for me. I remember we were there for about 15, 20 minutes, right? And one of the guys that was getting recruited, he's quite literally just leaning down, like up against the wall like this, and he's like, slumped over. And this sergeant comes out and he's like, "Am I putting you to sleep, am I? Is this boring for you? If you don't like it, fuck off." And he's just like, "Oh, no, I want to join." And he's like, "Well, then sit upright." And everyone was just like, and we all had this collective look of, okay, this is real.
Yeah.
Like, this is it. And
Playing for keeps here.
yeah. And it was kind of like it was a moment of like, oh, and like, you could see in the eye, like everyone, we're looking each other in the eye, and we're all like, oh, no, fuck it, we're doing this. Yeah, I'm doing this. I'm staying. Like,
Yeah, right.
this is what I want. And we all did. We all kind of went, yeah, this is it. And without saying anything, we all just like went, yeah, we're staying. Yeah, this is it. This is what we want. Yep, this is it. And one of the blokes like, just remember, you can fire a gun overseas at this place. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
So, talk me through, mate, because you, like, at that stage, your father-in-law had said SIGs. Infantry hadn't come into your head, or had it?
Combat engineering.
Right. So, and when you go down to Kapuka in 2000, are you at that stage? Are they core allocating you, or do you get? To because of my qualifications that I had. Yep.
I had the Cert 4 in audio engineering. I had finished my apprenticeship as a liney, a technician, and also I don't know how they managed to meld it in, but the recruiters are fabulous at making things look like they're not. When I was doing bouncing work, I also did private investigating and shop detective work, and they were like, well, we've got, like, I still remember it. I was like, yeah, I want to be a combat engineer. I want to do earth moving. I want to do bobcats. I want to dig things and build a bridge and blow it. They were just like, well, your qualifications actually put you in a much higher paying job. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? Like, don't we all get paid the same? And he was like, oh, yeah, you all get paid the same, but certain specialities get paid a bit more.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what more? And this is 99, 2000. He goes,
Yeah.
well, instead of being on, say, 35, 40,000 as a combat engineer, you could be on $50,000 as an EW operator. And I'm like, EW? What's that? Listen, mate, there's not much I can tell you about that. But I think you're it. I think you're good for electronic warfare. And I was just like, electronic warfare? That sounds
interesting.
Yeah. I don't know what they do, but yep.
Yep, I'm in.
Yeah, all right. And he goes, all right then, EW it is. I'm like, yeah, EW it is. We're going to have to get you cleared first, and we're going to have to clear your family as well. And I'm just like, why? They're not joining. Okay, with this job, you require clearances. We need to make sure that your family are cleared.
Ah, right. Yep.
For this role.
I know what you say, yep.
And I was like, shit, what does that mean? Oh, look, someone from, back then they were called the Defence Security Organisation, DSO or something like that. They'll come along and they'll interview you and your wife or your partner. And that's when he said, oh, are you married? And I said, oh, no, not yet. Get married. Do that now. Like, plan and organise to get married. You're engaged? Yeah, get married. Before you join, it's easier. Oh, okay. Why? And he goes, trust me, mate. Like, he says, I've been in for 25 years and I got married twice. I had 2 breakups, blah, blah, blah. He's rapping about all his previous wives, and he goes, trust me, mate, administratively, it's easier to get married before you get in. I'm like, oh, okay, then sure, no worries. So that afternoon, I went home, told my father-in-law, and I said, yeah, so I already asked her to marry me, but I hadn't set a date. And I said, yeah, so I'm doing EW. I'm going to be an electronic warfare operator. And he's like, oh, yeah, what's that? And I don't know, but we get paid more. We get paid $50,000. It's a specialty job. And he's like, oh, okay, mate. Oh, good on you. Yeah, well done. I said, and we have to get married before I join. And he's just like, when? And I said, oh, soon. So this is around Christmas time, 99.
Yep.
Kelly and I got married in May.
Yeah, right. Quick to plan a wedding, mate. Far out.
Well, her dad's a chef,
Yep.
and he could organise. He did a lot of weddings. So it was just a quick, family come to get married. Yeah, so we had to be interviewed for my clearances. They came to the house, interviewed Kelly, and then they just did a bit of research on me and stuff like that. And then they deemed that I was suitable to be cleared to do this job. And then it became official. They were like, right. So everyone else who joined, infantry, engineering, and RAMI and so on and so forth, they'd already started their process. I had to go through an extra step to join, and that was it. And that went for a couple of months, paperwork and so on and so forth, filling out the paperwork to get married, and then I started doing all the recruiting, like the aptitude test to make sure that I did have the aptitude. I did, and then I had to do extra aptitude tests, and then I had to do psychological tests, all this recruiting stuff. And then it came time, they said, okay, I did the physical, passed the physical. We did it at an Ogra. And then it was like, okay, you passed the physical. We're now going to put all the paperwork together, blah, 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 and we'll be in contact with you when we're going to give you a date to join. And that was in March, of 2000. And got married in May. My wife and I went on a honeymoon down to the Gold Coast because I knew it so well. We went to all the places that I used to work at, Warner Brothers. We went all through backstage of Warner Brothers for the wedding and stuff like that. So we still got a backstage tour of Warner Brothers and Movie World, Dream World, and all the places that I'd helped out. Anyway, whilst I was on the honeymoon, as I said, this is like infancy stage of mobile phones. I got a letter. I got home and there was a letter, and it was from the Department of Defence, and I was like, oh yeah, cool. And I was just like, oh righty, okay. I leave for, and I said, the day we got back from our honeymoon, I go to Kapuka in June. And she's like, what, next year? I went, next month. So we got married on the 1st of May. We had our honeymoon to the 14th of May. So on the 15th of May, I told her I'm leaving next month.
Yeah, I've got 2.5 weeks with you, darling. Love you.
So that was it. She accepted that because her dad was like, no, listen, this is how it's going to be. So he helped with that process for her. As for me, he was just like, listen, mate, you'll be right. You're going to be fine. It's going to be good. On the day of recruiting, I had to go, suit and tie, but I had to have another physical and do another aptitude test. Did it, passed, good, okay. And it was quite literally, we did the recruiting ceremony with my wife. She was already pregnant at that stage too, with Aiden, the one that just left before. She was pregnant with him, which I knew anyway. 13th of June. My birthday's on the 14th of June. Right, on the 13th of June, 2000, I was on a bus to Kapuka, and I was like, oh boy, here we go.
And I want to talk to you about this because I've had a lot of younger veterans on who join at 17, go down to Kapuka, and they really struggle. You are 24. So life experience, you're married, you've been, you've been out, you've been working. So how did you go at Kapuka? Right.
So I had a bit of not a complex, but I was just my first night, I'll tell you my first night, right? First night, Alpha Platoon, 5 Platoon Alpha Company. And my RIs were a military policeman, who I got to know later on, a bombardier, from artillery, 4 regiment or 4-field regiment, a transporty, and the rest were infantry, from 2 RAR and 3 RAR. So they were like, the 3 RAR lads are like, the green beret, the whole fucking shit. I was just like, no, wrong. That's wrong. That is incorrect. Maroon.
Oh, so, 3. Yep.
3. I apologise to everyone from 3 RAR.
And they had their power wings on.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was my mistake. I misspoke. I apologise.
I can edit that out. That's fine, mate. Yeah, I can change that for you. So that's fine.
He had the maroon beret.
Yeah.
It was So and when I saw that, I was just like, that looks like cool. Saw the MP with his red beret, and I was like, what the fuck? We turned up at night time. We arrived at about 10 o'clock at night, and we arrived up at the front of Alpha Company, and it was just the corporal that was escorting us from Brisbane on the plane to Sydney, then on the bus to Kapooka, said fuck all to us the whole way. And we stopped at Yass, had a feed, and people were going, oh, what's it going to be like there? And he's just like, just eat your food and we'll go. And that's what he was like. He was so dismissive of all of us. Eat your food and let's hurry up, sort of thing. When we got to Kapooka, quite literally, he slinked off the bus and the MP got on the bus, and and I still know this MP to this day.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is what the MPs did back then. I'm not sure if they do it anymore, but I know that I did it, and this is what this MP did to us. He's gone, right, my name's Corporal Foley. Corporal Foley. He goes, my name's Corporal Foley. I'm with the military police. When you get off this bus, you will stand on that yellow line. You won't fucking move. You will get your bags out. You will open them. I will inspect them. I will search through them. If you have any weapons, guns, knives, batons, ass batons, knuckle dusters, baseball bats with nails in them. He's just rattling off all these weapons. Bows and arrows, archery stuff. I will take it off you. It is an offence, both civil and military, to hold these weapons in your possession. Do you understand? And there was no reply, and he's like, and then one of the recruiting instructors gets on, that's a reply of yes, sir. I'm like, yes, sir. And he's like, your mum and dad aren't here anymore. Get off the fucking bus. And we quite literally, we were just like, oh, we were like, holy fucking shit, right, it's getting serious now.
Yeah.
So we got off the bus and we grabbed our bags, and there was these footprints on the ground you had to put your feet on, and there was a line, and we opened up our bags, and fucking people had like 410 shotguns, 222 rifles, and I was like, what the fuck? And I could hear the MP, and he was like, what the fuck do you want this for? I don't care if you're from Coonabarabran, mate, not here in Wagga, no fucking way. So that's what it was like for us.
Yeah, wow.
And these are the people that joined to go to Timor.
Yeah,
we all joined. Like, quite literally, like I saw people from Sydney, all that place, but my cohort from Brisbane, we all joined because we wanted to do the Timor thing. That's what we joined for. We wanted to go overseas and do that. Yeah. Like, that's the shit I want to do.
That's what I want to do. Yeah.
Don't bother out all this other drill stuff. No, I want to go straight there.
Got to crawl before you walk, and then walk before you run.
And so our first night was just constant yelling, and it was all professional, with their polys on and stuff like that. And I still remember the lieutenant came out because we all ran up to the stairs and had to put our stuff in our room, and then it was like, take off your clothes, you're not wearing them anymore. Put these fucking green tracksuits on, and it was these, the Kapooka tracksuit. I wish I stole one, but I never got to. A lot of my mates did, but I never did. So then first night, Lieutenant Walker was his name, because he came out and he was younger than me. He was this young, fresh, because they send all the new lieutenants to Kapooka for a reason. And he's come out, and I just remember he was just this, didn't even have stubble on his face. He looked that young. And he's come out, and all the others, like all these infantry soldiers, like some of them had just done Timor, quite literally, like this was their first recruiting sort of thing, and they're as rugged as fuck. Some had done Somalia and all that sort of stuff, and right. Rwanda, and one of them had done the Gulf back in the 90s. I had that sort of cohort. This lieutenant come out. I just remember thinking, why is the year 10 prefect come here and give us a speech?
Barely old enough to shave, yeah.
He looked like a year 10 prefect, coming out to give a speech on why he should be fucking, the next president. Anyway, he's come out and he's like, my name is Lieutenant Walker, spelt Walker. Remember that, because you will be writing it down a lot. And then he gave us a speech about how he was, what the expectations of us and so on and so forth. And then it was, it was just from there we got our bags, unpacked them all, and then repacked them, and it was then put into the box room. And back then, our Kapuka lasted 6 weeks, because back then they were trying to get as many people through to get into the IETs to get out and be on the job. And so for most of 2000 and part of 99, these courses went for 6 weeks.
Yeah, right.
And it was jam-packed. I mean, it was everything. Like, first night, we were learning how to stand at attention and how to stand at ease, and we were learning drill in the hallway at 11:30 at night. First night there, because it was just so jam-packed.
Yeah.
And I remember we had a feed the very next morning. We all went to bed, and they said, they woke us up, hallway fucking 5. We burst out there with our whole, things over our sheets, over our shoulder, and it was like, holy fuck. And they're yelling at us and all that sort of stuff. And then it was just like, because we hadn't officially, been introduced, or we hadn't been there long enough, we weren't allowed to go to the mess. They brought the mess to us. So we had, the tinfoil box. And I had, it was a boiled tomato with a boiled egg and boiled bacon. Everything looked like it had been boiled with baked beans that had probably been fried. That's what it was. And that was breakfast. Right. And I didn't give a shit. I just ate it. I was just like, oh, yeah. And then all of a sudden, by the time I was getting into it, it was like, right, that's it. Bring it all your fucking rubbish down here. Right, because by this stage we already knew that we were one section and that they were two section, and that when we heard our instructor give us the thing, we went with him, and he came in, right, get all your stuff down there. And the MP, I remember the MP was standing next to the brew urn, the hot one, and the cold one, and he's like, right, one section, you're taking all the stuff back down to the mess. And I was like, oh, okay. And I went to go pick up the brew urn, and it was the hot one. And I remember as I'm walking through into the foyer, and he's saying to us, you're taking it down to the mess. And I was just like, And he's like, what the fuck are you fucking tutting for? And I was like, I didn't tut, Corporal, I didn't tut. And he's like, just shut the fuck up and take it down there. And I was like, And as he said that, I've picked up the brew end, and I've turned the tap on it, and it was hot, and it burnt my hand. And I was like, fucking cunt. and he's pushed it out of my hands, and he's grabbed me. He's like, what did you fucking call me? I was like, I didn't call you anything, Corporal. I didn't say anything. He goes, you called me a fucking cunt. I'm like, no, I didn't call you a fucking cunt. If I wanted to call you a fucking cunt, I'd fucking do it to your fucking face. And I was like, no. I then fucking started shirt fronting him. And then my instructor come over, and he's like, get the fuck over there. You'll be on the admin line once you get back up here. And I was like, I didn't fucking say anything. He's like, shut the fuck up. So it was this big yelling match, and I'm giving it back to him. I'm like, who the fuck? Like, mate, I know what I said. I didn't say that. So I got lambasted. And so I went and down to the mess, and I was just like, what a fucking arsehole, walking down, and what a fucking arsehole. And from behind us, don't talk while you're marching on the fucking thing, and all this sort of shit. And I was just like, holy fuck. So this was another pivotal point of like, oh fuck this, I was like, no, I'll stay. I went back up, got in the admin line, and I got into trouble straight away.
So that it was a learning experience.
Oh, absolutely.
Kapuka, and so you jam-pack 6 weeks, and then you march out, and then you go to your initial employment training. And we're just, before you pick up on that, we're just going to have a quick break.
Sure.
And we'll come back and talk about your IETs and what that was like. So we'll have a quick break, and we'll come back.
Sure.
So, welcome back from that short little refreshment break. And now, Mick, we pick up on you march out of Kapuka, proud moment. You've actually, you've achieved something
Yes.
pretty amazing, like
That's
going
right.
through and proud. And you go into your IETs, mate. Talk me through your initial employment training.
So there are two parts to my initial employment training. First one was the introduction to signals. So it was learning about antenna theory, learning about Raytel, and basically giving a broad introduction to signals itself. And we were taught very basic antenna theory and also Raytel procedures. But it really focused heavily on combat signals. So as the radio operator would do, there was a lot of Mullendun State Forest down in Victoria. We were in there in the wintertime, and I remember my first day in the Mullendun State Forest in the bottom of Victoria. It's wintertime. It's very fucking cold. I remember the first morning at 0 dark 100 and stand 2. And I remember getting out of my sleeping bag and lying down stand 2, and there's a blanket of snow all around us. And I just remember that was a turning point. I guess I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, how did I get to this? Like, I'm lying in snow in Victoria with a rifle. I'm like, oh, fuck. And then I was just like, you know what, fuck it, let's keep going. And, so that was a very big turning point. And it was very heavily focused on combat SIG and communications in the field. A very broad spectrum. It was like 6 weeks that went for. Then I got sent up to Kabbalah in the hinterland of Toowoomba. And that was the base for 7 Signals Electronic Warfare Regiment. It's also the School of Electronic Warfare for Tri-Service. When we first arrived there, we were just waiting on, persons' clearances to be cleared and so on and so forth, and admin and so on and so forth. So about a week of just us being GDs for a week, and we were, quite literally mowing lawns, moving rocks from one place to another, changing the outlay of a car park with paint and all that, just general crap. It's what we did back then. When I first started the course, they said to us, okay, you're going to go for the first month of this course, you need to be up to, by the end of the first month, you need to be at 25 words a minute in touch typing, and you need to be at about 8 words a minute in Morse code. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I'd never touch type in my fucking life. My mum and my sisters, when they did all that, the typewriter, no, not me, no. I think it was just a very... a bit of a surprise for me, and I was like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, how, like, it just wasn't computing with me. So anyway, and we went, and so for the next month I was there learning how to touch type. Granted, I did get to the speed that was required at that particular time, by
You're right, mate. Keep going.
And then we had other aspects of the course. There were a lot of mathematics involved because there's a bit of antenna theory involved, but not much antenna theory. But it was, challenging but enjoyable. But the challenging part for me was the Morse code. Now we had to pass the course, we had to reach a speed of, I believe at that particular time, it was 22 words a minute. I was plateauing for weeks and weeks on end, because the course goes for 12 months. And for weeks on end, I was plateauing at about 12 to 15 words a minute, up and down, depending on how I felt. Every night we would do homework, which was Morse code and touch typing. Some people just got it. I didn't. There was a guy on my course who he was just from another planet, I reckon. He could touch type up to 80 words a minute, and he could also listen to Morse code at the speed required, 22 words a minute.
Yeah, right.
Whilst listening to Sepultura, which is a Brazilian heavy metal band. I was like, what the fuck? Because we'd hear this music, and I'd be like, what the fuck is that? Like, because because you got your headphones on, and you're just listening, and you're just like taking it down with notes and trying to write down every single character and in the order that it's in, and get it all correct, and hope that you don't make any mistakes. 98% is the pass mark, and you just really, really, you got white line fever with the headphones on, and the smallest sound, you'd just be like, oh fuck! You throw your pen down, shut the fuck up. It was pretty stressful, and yeah, hearing this noise, and we're like, is that like someone got a radio on? And there he is in the background like this, like bobbing his head, just writing things down. I'd be like, what the fuck? And he'd finish, and we'd be like, what are you listening to? And he's like, oh, Sepultura. They're a Brazilian heavy metal band. I'm like, well, aren't you meant to be doing a skit? And he's like, oh yeah, I finished it. I just finished another one. I passed. How the fuck do you do that? And he goes, I don't know, man. I just listen to the music and go with the tunes. I'm like, no, sorry. Like, I need complete silence. I want the world to just stop for a second while I do this sked for the next 45 minutes. That's what it was like. I never managed to reach the speed that was required, so I did everything else that was required of the course that was necessary for the trade. However, Morse code at that particular time was a requirement, and a very special requirement as well. And so, unfortunately, I was not able to reach the required speed. I had to do hearing tests a whole lot, and they came back and they said, listen, turns out you are Morse illiterate after 18 words a minute. Like, you can hear, but you can't. You're not literate in that thing. And I was just like, oh, okay. And they said, so, yeah, you're Morse illiterate after 18 words. So we need you at 22. So, look, we're going to send you back down to the School of SIGs in Melbourne, and you're going to be a radio operator. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, okay. Now, at this stage, I was living on base in the married patch with my wife.
Yeah.
And my newborn and her kids. So we had 4 kids living on base in the married patch at 7 SIG at Kabbalah. And, I remember that. I came back to her and I said, okay, so I'm heading to Melbourne. And she's like, oh, what for? And I said, because I didn't pass this course, so I'm going to be a radio operator. And she's like, what the fuck? And I'm like, fortunately, again, her dad was there to remind her, like her dad, she got on the phone to her dad, and he was like, listen, this thing happens, this is what the Army's like, they do this, just go with the process. You've got a married patch, you're in a house now, don't worry about it, you'll be fine, he'll come back, and it's all going to be good. So, okay. So off I went, quite literally a month after or 3 weeks, actually, after I finished with the EW course. I got sent down to Melbourne, and in 2001, in February, I got sent down to Melbourne and started the radio operators course. The first month of the radio operator course, so February through to March, we were at Puckapunyal doing a driver's course. So back then, Land Rover and 6B with trailers. Again, it was like, it was annoying. It was actually when I had my first Anzac Day. So for me, Puckapunyal Anzac Day 2001 was probably along with a list of many, but this one really stuck to me the most because it was so significant. We got woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning to gunfires, minimise, stires. Came outside there all yelling at us, hurry up, get downstairs, get dressed, get dressed. And we got dressed and ran downstairs, and there's this tent and there's these old fellas, and they're like, quick, get this in here. And we got this coffee with rum in it, and I was just like, holy shit, like, oh my God, drink it down, boys, drink it down. I was like, oh my God. But in the background, this is at Puckapunyal, in the background, 30 cal, 50 cal, 105s, just and it was just constant, and it was over that side, and it just the ambient noise coming from the range into where we were in the garrison, it was extremely what's the word, is poignant, correct? Where it's like oh my God, like this is how it was for them. Like it was like, oh my God, like it's significant. It was like, oh wow, like this is very effective. Like it really, really, really tugged at my heartstrings on that one. I guess that's when I really started to grow a really much greater appreciation for this institution, this the Royal Australian Army.
You're starting to bleed green. This is where
I'm I'm part of a fabric that has lent itself all the way to 1901, even further with the Boer War.
With the Boer War,
those people that were there, they were here too. Like, I'm at Puckapunyal. I remember Puckapunyal. I remember that I was only 19. They were here. Yeah. I'm here. Here I am. And that's when it all kind of went, oh, I'm part of something bigger here. Like, this is special. Like, no matter what I do, but I'm in these places. And I was like, wow, that whole Anzac Day experience for me was, and the thing that really, even to this day, that really like hits harder for me home, and it really is a very special moment. 5:55 in the morning, and it was at 4:55. The guns stopped, right? Puckapunyal, the guns stopped. It's still dark.
It fell silent, yeah.
The sun is so there's a blue tinge coming up because it's the very edge of the sun coming up. There's just this blue halo in the east of where the sun is just about to rise, but then the guns just went silent. I mean, and it was loud, and then it was just silence. Mm. And then you hear this, "Carafal Pare, Ek, Arch," and I was like, holy shit. And I could hear him in a Sato voice from 50 metres away calling the Catafalque Party. It was that silent.
Yeah, right.
And to me, I was just like, oh, shit. Like, this is it. Like, this is what I'm in, you know? And that whole Anzac Day experience for me was, yeah, that part was extremely significant. It was very, yeah, I was like, this is it. But then after lunch, you know, we started playing Crown and Anchor, and we started playing Two Up.
Yep.
Because we were in the transport lines, I think the guys from artillery came up and in the back of this ute, drunk as all hell, all these guys from Arty came up, dropped their ducks and called out, "Ah, you fucking transporty fuckheads," and mooned us as they drove. We were just like, oh. And we were so drunk, we were like saluting, going, hey, go boys, you know. So it was.
So is that 2001?
Yeah. That was early days, 2001.
So early
March.
days. So, and this is where we tie back in, because this is a big year for you. This is
massive.
This is a massive year,
Yeah.
and what's about to happen, and we're going to get to that with September 11 in a minute.
Yes.
But we'll go back to your Bravery Medal.
Yes.
You're just thinking, oh yeah, I'll get a ride in a fire truck.
They said, you get that laid out. I thought, oh, good, I'll get a ride in a fire truck with the lights on or something.
No, so you actually, talk me through, do you receive a letter to say that, and who put you up for this Bravery Award?
So it was the Queensland Police, the Queensland Fire, and the coroner, and also the Queensland Ambulance, all three services, and also the coroner at the coroner's inquest put me up for the award.
So you get presented. Please come to Government House, or
Kelly is back at home, back up in Kabbalah on the married patch, because that's where we had the married patch, and my course was 9 months. It wasn't taught for the radio operator course, so they said, no, you'll go down and do your course, and then you get posted back up to 7 SIG. And I was like, oh, yeah, cool. And they said, just keep your wife there, you'll be fine.
Yep.
You'll get to fly home every couple of months, which is true. Whilst I was down at we got back from Puckapunyal, and then I got on the phone to Kelly, because back then it was, well, we had mobile phones, but we used payphone more.
Yeah.
And I got the payphone, and I said, this is doing this, doing that. And she's like, there's a letter here from Government House. I'm like, oh. I said, just send it down to me. And she's like, I've read it. It's from the Governor General. I'm like, oh, what's he called it? Why? And she's like, I don't know. So she sent the mail down to me through Millpost. And yeah, sure as hell, there's this letter from the Governor General representing the Queen, which is basically the Queen, saying, due to your acts, and then they had the citation, we are awarding you the Australian Bravery Medal. And I was just like, oh, shit, what's that? Like, because I'm never in that circle. Now that I'm in, I'm like, oh. And I'm like, and remember showing it to my sergeant on course, and I'm like, "Hey, Sarge, I just got this letter yesterday," and he's just like, and he just went pale, and he's like, "Why are you getting this letter?" And I'm like, "Oh, so I saved a lady from a house fire like 2 years ago, like a year and a half ago," and he's like,
Before I was in defence.
Yeah, before I was in defence, and he's like, and he's reading, and he's like, "Oh my fucking God, we've got to go up to the RSM's office now," and I'm like, "Why? What have we done? Like, what does this mean?" And he goes, "Just go and grab your hat. Meet me. Let's go." I'll grab my hat, and we're racing up. And back then, the RSM of School of Sigs was Pete Zajac.
Yeah.
Great man. Never needed a microphone on a parade. He just had a big voice. Pete Zajac. Ronald Zajac. Went into his office, and he's like, "Right, get in here. What's going on?" And I'm at attention, and he's like, "Stand at attention. Right, at ease." And I'm like, "Yes, sir." And he's like, "Right, what have we got here, Sergeant?" And he goes, "Sir, I think you should have a look at this." And he's read it, and he's like, "Right, from the Governor General, what have you done, Corbett Dawson? Oh, Sig Dawson, what have you done? What's going on?" And I said, "Oh, sir, I saved a lady from a house fire a couple of years ago." And he's like, "Oh, well, congratulations, good work, well done. This is why you're in the army, because people like you, we need them." And he's reading the letter, and he's like, "Well then, looks like I'm going to have to get my fucking pollies to get ready." And I'm like, "Why?" And he goes, "Well, you and I have got a meeting at Government House." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I said, "When?" And he goes, "Next month." And I'm like, "Okay." And he goes, "That means you got to get your pollies ready." And I'm like, "Oh shit, okay, yes sir." So that was that. So I got this letter from the Governor General, and instructed, and because I was in Victoria at the time, it had to be presented to me at Victoria Government House. That's when the radio made the announcements for the honours list, and I got a phone call from 2UE on my mobile phone, which, like, when I was at the School of Sigs, we didn't have it in the daytime, but when I got back to my room in the afternoon, I had all these missed phone calls, and they were from 2UE and 3AW and 4BC, and I'm like, I'm like, holy fuck, and I'm like, and initially I was like, oh, I'll just call them back, but I was like, oh no, wait, like, I probably should speak to my Sarge about this. So I went back down to the School of Sigs, and I'm like, "Sarge," I'm like, "I got all these phone calls from all these reporters," and he's like, "Do not say anything, come with me." So back up to the RSM's office, and the RSM's like, "Right, we're going to have to give you a press a media liaison officer." And I'm like, what are these things, like all these new things, like a media liaison? So I have this captain who's my media liaison officer, and he's like, "Okay, the following things you can talk about and signals: do not mention this, do not say this, don't say that, and if they ask you about this, just deflect this way, this way." So they taught me how to deflect. They taught me how to, I guess, the same way politicians do. They say, answer the question, but don't answer that question. Answer this question.
They lead into another question, or
exactly.
Politicians, don't get me started. I know. Do not get me started.
Yeah, so
they are great at deflecting.
Absolutely. So I was taught a very quick and very quick way of deflecting because I was in signals.
Yep.
And sure as shit, I was getting all these fucking questions like, "Oh, can you tell me more about the antennas at Kabbalah?" And I'm just like, "Look,
what's that got to do with my bravery war?"
Exactly. But that's the questions I was getting. "Oh, I see that your wife is up at Kabbalah there, and what's it like living on a base with all those antennas?" And I'm just like, "Oh, look, my wife and I are happy. My wife and I are very happy, and we are very thankful for being received this house that we have," and blah blah blah. It was just not answering the question, but answering it.
So, is Kelly, because you're in defence, is she allowed to come down and see the actual
the Defence Force
presentation?
Yeah, they flew down. In fact, Government House paid for the Governor General allowed my wife. Like they paid for her to go down.
Yeah,
and my mother and my sister.
Yeah, right.
So Kelly came down. They were put up in a B&B in just around the corner from Chapel Street in Melbourne, very ritzy part of town. And they were given a rental car, the whole lot.
Yeah, right.
And so we they came and met me at the School of Sigs, and we were quite literally 5 days into my course, and I've just met all these guys, and all of a sudden, Corbett Dawson's got to go to Government House today, and they're just like, "Oh, how come he's in pollies?" And I'm like, "Oh, I've got to get this medal at Government House." And they're like, "What medal?" "Oh, the Bravery Medal." "What the?" And a few people were like, "Holy shit!" And others were just like, "What?" So it was pretty raw for everyone, but for them anyway, they were just like, why is he?
Yeah.
So I went to Government House. I met my wife and my mum and sister at Government House, but the RSM was my chaperone, Pete Zajac, and he sent along another chaperone, a female captain, I believe, and she also was my defence representative, and they guided me on how to present myself, not only to the governor but also in regal, ceremonies.
Yeah,
I had to do, this drill. I had to, the way I spoke to, because there was a whole bunch of dignitaries there. The chief of police for the Victorian, which was the redhead bird back in 2001. I can't remember her name, but I remember her. And then there was the police, the fire chief, and then there was some other
all the top brass.
All the top brass were there, and there I was, and I have photos of me. So I did the ceremony. Like I went out and they called it, and I was the only one on that day that received the Bravery Medal.
All right.
So there were other guys that had received the one below mine, which is the commendation for bravery. But mine was the only one that I received the actual Australian Bravery Medal.
And was there like OAMs and that on that same day?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, right. So it was a big day.
In fact, Kathy Freeman received the OAM.
I remember the photo you sent me through.
Yes,
yeah.
And she came to me and she said, after the ceremony, because I'm there, and talking to my wife, and my wife, she's Aboriginal girl as well. So she's from Darug tribe in New South Wales, which is the Blue Mountains.
Yep.
And Parramatta River.
Where I grew
That's
up.
right.
Yep.
So she's that girl. That's why she said, my clan. So Kathy Freeman came up to us, and I said to Kelly, I said, it's Kathy Freeman. And she's come up to me, and she's very sheepish. She's a very shy lady. She's come up and she's like, excuse me, Michael, is it okay if I get a photo with you? And I was like,
You won gold in Sydney.
Yeah, like, you are an Olympian. Like, you just won gold last year. Like, I watched you, like, in my head.
Yeah.
And you're asking me for a photo? I'm just like, sure, okay. Can my wife be in it? She's from the Darug tribe in New South Wales, and she's like, I'm from Mackay,
right,
because she's a Murray girl. And my wife's Curry, so that's the different clans, and yes. So there's a picture of my wife and myself and Kathy Freeman, and she's just like, thank you so much. That story was so inspiring. That was great. And I'm just like, okay, all right, yeah, cool.
Surreal, isn't it? Like, you don't think, because I've recently met the Governor General, the current Governor General.
Yes.
And mate, I was like starstruck because I was in the like I can talk to anyone with a mouthful of marbles, but meeting her, I was like, hi, Your Excellency, like, and I was stumbling on words, mate, because you never think that you're ever going to be in their presence. Like, you never, ever, like, I never did.
Right.
Like, and you're mate, you simply did a brave thing, and you never expected to meet Kathy Freeman or be awarded this Bravery Medal.
I would have been quite happy just to get a ride in a fire truck and push the sirens.
So you get a surreal day, and I want to bring this in because I know you teared up when you lost your dad. That would have been, I reckon, the smile that would have been on his face from heaven would have been, he would have just been, look at my son who, at first he was I'm wondering what this kid's actually going to do, and now he gets awarded a Bravery Medal for saving someone's life. Yeah, so from the construction side of a Italian concreter to a bloody the gardens of Government House in Victoria with dignitary. And you, mate, proud day, and I know, and I've interviewed a lot of veterans, and I know gallantry awards can cause a lot of jealousy. Did you ever feel that? Because I'm guessing you're walking around with, and at this point you hadn't deployed. That's right. And you've got a medal on your chest. How were you received when you got back? Okay, so I pretty much was the poster kid for SIGs at that stage. And I put that in there because
after me was Jock Wallace, which received the Star of the Star of
Gallantry or the
Courage. He wrote a book called 18 Hours. He's a Sikh.
Yeah, right.
And he was in the Afghanistan in the early days in 2001, 2002.
Okay, yeah, right.
And he received. He wrote a book called 18 Hours. Jock Wallace. I knew him as Jock Wallace because I met him down at the School of SIGs. I knew him before he did the thing. Yeah, Jock Wallace received the. I
Either
could
the
be
Star
wrong.
of Courage
Star
or
of
the Medal for
Courage or
Gallantry?
Medal for Gallantry, one of those two. But he was but I was before him with my medal, so the RSM Pete Zarjak, like he was like, tonight you're going to this dinner, we're going to be going to this luncheon on Saturday, and then on Sunday I was just like, what? And I was just paraded around, like, going from dinner to ball to, this afternoon at the mess there's going to be this thing, come down, bring your medal, put it on, put your polys on. So I was in polys, in and out of polys for fucking weeks, and I was just like, this is bullshit. And I had a course to do as well. I was learning a radio operator course, and that's not easy. Well,
of course,
it's mathematics. It's signals. It's
Well, you want to be focused on your course,
I do.
not on being the poster boy. And Mick, I know you, and I know how humble you are. So you would have felt very uncomfortable doing that.
I did as I was told because I was a soldier, and that's what I did. That's what we do. I did as I was told. So I turned up in uniform with my Bravery Medal, and sat there and there's a picture of me. There was a picture of me in the one of the Melbourne papers. I think it was the Herald or something like that. And it was the picture they took of me in the gardens, and I'm drinking a Crown. I have a schooner of Crown in one hand, and I have because I used to smoke, and I have a cigarette in the other, and I've got this 3AW microphone in my mouth, and I'm just there going, yeah, and it's just that photo of me, quite literally, and the RSM, and he's just like, he was just like, where was that photo taken? I said, oh, that was in the garden, sir. That was in the because he wasn't there for after the ceremony. He had to go back to the thing, and it was just the female captain as a chaperone afterwards. And so, there I was having a Crown because they said, oh, what do you want to drink? And I was like, oh, what have you got? And they're like, we've got champagne, we've got orange juice, we have Crown. That'll do. Thank you. Got a Crown, and I'm walking around Government House, gardens with all these other people, and they're all getting interviewed, and I'm just like, oh, this is amazing. I've got my wife with me and my mum and my sister, and I'm like, this is pretty cool. I'm just going to go over here and have a cigarette. And I ducked off to the side just to have a smoke, and I'm there having this smoke, and then this lady walks over and she's, hello, I'm from 3AW. Can we have an interview, please? And I'm like, and I'm looking for my chaperone. I'm like, oh, I just got away from my chaperone. I can't really, no, what are you going to ask? No, I just want to talk to you about, the experience you had. Tell me about what happened there. And so she's got the microphone face, and I'm like, yeah, righto, okay. So anyway, and I just started talking, and then next, TUE come over, and then Forbies. So I had all of these, the same people that were on the phone to me previously are now in my face, and the camera crew's there, and I'm on camera with a Crown in one hand and a smoke in the other, and I'm trying to smoke my smoke without. I'm doing the tactical cigarette like this, and it just wasn't working because it was every time I smoke pouring out
typical
of my mouth.
Aussie imprint made of an Aussie veteran. Yep, beer in one hand, smoke in the other.
So I went back to work the next day, but I was all of these luncheons and morning teas and dinners and this went on for a couple of weeks and. Fortunately for me, Pete Zarjak was like, he was like, listen, because Pete Zarjak, I think, was a radio operator himself, and he was like, listen, Sig Dawson's got to go back to his course. He's got a very important course doing a very important role. It's probably one of the better roles in signals, so we're going to put him back on course. So that was it. I stopped doing all these dignitaries, and that was it for me. Like, I got a letter from the association, the one we spoke previously before about the Bravery Medal Association.
Yep.
But at the time, again, I was referring because I'm brand new in the army, and the corps I'm in, and the role I had, it was a bit different. The clearances, I was like, I better go show this to my sergeant. And he was like, listen, mate, hold off on those associations, the Bravery Medal Association and the Gallantry Association, blah blah blah. And he says, hold off on them until later on. And so I did, but I never bothered to go back to them. Melbourne RAs, Melbourne, Watsonia, Greensboro, School of Signals in those early days, early 2000, March, maybe so on and so forth. There was a bus stop that picked up kids from school that went through the base. That went through the base and then out the other side onto Yalambee Road, and then you had people coming from the school behind us at Yalambee High that were walking through the base. The fences were non-existent. At night time, if I felt like going to McDonald's, which was at the back gate, which was pretty much every fucking night, I'd just walk out and walk down the back and just come back in at any time. We would, the boozer was, always happening. And so, yeah, it was uncanny. In fact, I remember one day there was a police chase going through the base. I remember there was a police chase that came through the base. Victoria police cars coming in and stopping them all off at just near the 4 Brigade headquarters parade ground. And he's gone onto the parade ground and then ducked down the other side. And they've all come. The helicopters flying above. So that was the base. The security was, well, it wasn't there. It was a token security. It was, and a bit different up at Seven Sig, of course. In fact, at Seven Sig base, back then, it was a 3-strand barbed wire fence. And I recall, when I was doing my EW course, I recall protesters turning up, protesting about the alleged nuclear silos on the golf course. Which was right. Idiots, I don't know where they get their information from, but they were completely wrong. And we would have, protesters on the antenna farm saying that it was giving us cancer, all this sort of crap. But they just could jump over there and get it. You can't do it now, of course. Security is so much harder. But back then, that's what it was like. And the School of SIGs was the same thing. The back fence, the fences were quite literally just a cyclone fence that people would, like the people that lived in the married patch behind Watsonia would quite literally just jump the fence and walk up through the antenna farm at the School of SIGs in Melbourne, and then go to the school. There was was thing. But I've got to say,
oh, sorry, yep, you go.
No, I'll say
So we'll bring in, like as you say, and I've spoken to a lot of veterans that security back then was loose,
absolutely,
but a day that changed the world and changed the next portion of your career and many veterans' careers. September 11.
Yes.
What do you remember of that day? And
I remember it exactly. This is how it was for me, right? So we were at the very end of our course, radio operator course. We were at the... we were doing specialised stuff of the course. And so we would be in communication centres doing shift work and so on and so forth. I remember I was not on shift, but some of our people in our course were on shift in the communication centre. It was about, would have been about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. I'm watching The West Wing, right?
Yep.
Now, I don't know if this is a coincidence or not, but the episode on The West Wing was of when the Unibomber bombed the trade centre in the car park. Remember that one, the Unibomber?
I do, yeah, roughly, yeah, right. I do remember it.
Right, the West Wing were using that, coattailing that story and putting it in with their West Wing story, right? Yep. And so on the West Wing, they had, like CNN with the World Trade Center, and it was like focusing on the World Trade Center, right? And I was watching the show, but I wasn't watching the show. I was, ironing my uniform or whatever, getting ready for the next day. I was doing a bit of reading over my study notes or whatever, talking to my mates in the hallway. We were, we were in the lines. It was, it was, doors were always open. We would be talking to each other. Hey, what are you doing? Where have you been tonight? Oh, I just went down to the pub. That was what it was like for us. And I just remember walking back to my room, and it still had on my TV, it was still had, the CNN, World Trade Center, and I was just like, oh, yeah. Not paying attention, thinking, oh, geez, they're drawing this out. Geez, they've drawn a long bow with this storyline. God, it's gone for ages. I went outside, I went downstairs, I had a cigarette. I spoke to a couple of guys in their rooms. They were playing video games. I went back into my room, and I'm like, all right, this is bullshit. Like, this is getting boring.
Next channel.
Change the channel. Same thing. Change the channel. Same thing. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on here? I'm like, and I've called out, hey guys, I've called out, and hey guys, are you guys watching the TV? And one of the other mates, he's just like, what's going on in New York? And I'm like, oh, is it New York, is it? And he's like, a plane crashed into the World Trade Center. I'm like, fucking hell. And quite literally, as we saw that,
Yeah.
up came the duty sergeant. He was on duty, and he's hollering out, all personnel, outside uniform IDs now. Outside now. And they came up and he's walking through the hallway. Get your IDs, get into uniform, get downstairs now.
Yeah, right.
Hurry up. And we're just like, holy fucking shit. And like, I've got dressed and I'm like, holy fuck. And I'm like, do we have to save? And he's like, just get your ID and get downstairs now.
Yeah,
Lock your doors, grab your keys. And I'm like, holy fuck. So we've, closed our doors and uniforms on, IDs out, and we're standing out in front of our buildings, and every other building is doing exactly the same thing. And I was just like, what the fuck? And I just saw a string of cars coming onto base, and I was like, what the fuck? And, our duty sergeant, he's like, right, marched us down to the school, onto the parade ground, and this is like 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
10:30, 11 o'clock at night.
This doesn't happen. This is not normal.
I'm like, what is fucking going on? Like, what have we done? Has someone taken a shit in the fucking in the washing machine again? This sort of a behaviour, this sort of thing would only granted if someone's done something stupid, like shit in the dryer or something like that, or stolen the drinks from the drink machine. No, this was deadly serious. We had to present our ID, and we had to present. And back then we didn't have P and Qs; we had Regi numbers, so we had to recite our Regi number.
Yeah,
our name.
Do you still remember yours?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, 181-4432. PM keys 825-4525.
There you go.
No,
I just wanted to test you on that.
Oh, Kelly even knows it too. She knows it off by heart. So, there we were on the parade ground yelling out our Regi numbers, and that's when they told us. We already knew, but it was, I think, like for us initially, it was just like, why are we doing this? Like a plane has just crashed into the trade center. At that stage, it was just one plane. We weren't aware of the Pentagon. We weren't aware of Virginia.
Plane.
We weren't aware, and we weren't even aware of the second plane that knocked it down.
Yeah,
we just knew the first one. We just thought, it's just a plane crash. No, it became quite like it. That's when they said to us, there has been a terrorist attack on the world, on New York, on America. They said, from now on, you're on duty. Like, from this moment, you are on duty. We are now going to, we're locking the gates, no civilians are to enter the base. So from that day onwards, we had no civilians on base. The front gates were locked.
Yep.
The military police were guarding the gates. We were patrolling the base with pick handles and walkie-talkie or radios and doing it in turn. So even though we still had to do our course, but we also had to do shifts on roaming pickets.
Yeah, right.
And the base is pretty big, so we'd have we'd be after this section whatever it was back then, or Sector G or whatever it was for us, and we would patrol that part with pick handles thing, and we would have to report every single anomaly in the fence line, any changes in the fence line. And I still remember it because there were contractors turned up, I think it was a week after it happened, and they were starting to install these big fucking 8 foot fence line with barbed wire at the school.
Right.
It happened like quite literally a week after. But what really changed was the security. We ended up getting, we had the military police and the Victoria Police on our gates. The other thing, Melbourne, right? Very multicultural. We had protesters out the front praising the attack out the front.
Yeah, right.
And also at the airport. Now, we previously, when we were, went home for a couple of days and stuff like that, we just order a cab. They'd come up to our dorm, and then we just put our bags in the back, and then we drive off to the airport. We wouldn't bother with any particular service, just anyone who came at that time. And then we just, fuck off to the airport and do it the same at the other end. That changed. No more. It was, you will contact this taxi service, and you will meet them at this point, and you will use this, way of paying them.
We still had to wear uniforms?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
From that moment, no more uniform off base. Absolutely zero. And because we were, back then, after that happened, I still remember, because that happened in September, and our course finished at the end of September. And I just remember the last couple of weeks in Melbourne, a lot of hostilities, like at the Greensboro Shopping Centre, a feral fucking thing. Anyway, Greensboro Shopping Centre, like there were just a lot of unknowns going on.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And also at the airport as well. Going into the city, I remember we used to catch a train into the city all the time, or a tram, and we go to the MCG and watch the footy. That all changed. We had to have our IDs, but we never, ever wore anything that resembled defence after that. No more.
It's, as I said to you, and I've said it to many people, that that day changed the world, and we've never been right since. We've never been right since. Nope. And I know, like back then, mate, could you foresee that you would, you would then deploy to Afghanistan many years down the track? No. Like this is where basically from then on, the army is just there's deployments, and this is our most busiest time. You're in this period. And you this is what I mean. And as you said as well, and many people didn't, and the civilian listener who doesn't understand this, that the ANZUS Treaty was acted on, and that was when we started the global war on terror. And
absolutely. So
that happens, mate, and then I'll go forward a couple of years, because then you core transfer, mate, and you go into being into what most people, most veterans, infantry veterans I've spoken to, hate MPs, so military police.
Yes.
What made you go down this path?
Okay, so I guess it was from when before I joined the army, doing security and private investigating and shop detective work and bouncing and stuff like that. We had a couple of reservists that worked for us that were military police as well. And they were telling me about their time, how they'd be on the range all the time shooting MP5s and 9mm pistols, and I was just like, oh, cool, that'll be all right. But there was also, when we lived on base at Kabbalah, the MPs from Oki used to come into the married patch, and up the top of the married patch there were the houses that were getting knocked down, and they would use the military police, the bodyguards, and also the dog handlers would use them for their training. And I was just like, fuck yeah, because me as a SIG, I was doing SIG stuff as a radio operator at 7 SIG. Like we did a lot of radio stuff, but I was doing a lot of antenna theory. Like I was specialising in HF antennas. I was specialising in making antennas out of a bit of brass wire, a copper nail into a tree, and I could make an antenna out of a Coke can. I could make an antenna out of a fence line. That's what I was focusing on. I was doing. We were using the moon for transmissions. We were using. We would do. These are our exciting things in SIGs for me back then. We would do long shots. So I would. I'd start a long shot at 3:30 in the morning, set up an antenna at this part of the base, and I would point it to the north, and I'd be communicating with a warship in the Northern Pacific Ocean, and then this antenna would be communicating with a PC-3 Orion flying over Canada, and then this antenna at this part of the field would be communicating with someone in England, and then this antenna would be communicating with someone in East Timor. And so we would then have this multiple conversation, but it was like the net controller would be the North Pacific, and and we were just part of the net, and so that was our excitement. And then when I saw the MPs kicking down a door and going with the dog, get your hands out, I was just like, fuck yeah, like
I want to do that.
That's the shit. Like I'm getting my hands dirty. That looks like they're getting their hands dirty. All I'm doing is getting fucking splinters from the fucking antennas I'm building. I had an array of antennas that I built and made, and every day I go to work, I'd be like, here's another antenna I made, and they'd be like, yeah, let's call up this person and comms with them, and talk to someone in Townsville. But we were learning our craft. Our craft was I can't go into too much detail of what we did but it was I learned a craft that kind of tied in with my audio engineering trade.
Are you thinking too that if you transferred over to MPs, you deploy with MPs, or? I
wasn't thinking deployments. I mean, I did want one. I did want them. I actually tried for I tried for Tag East in 2002.
Yeah, right. Right. So So for the non, I just want to put in here.
Sorry,
Nick, so I'll put this in because. So for the the civilian listener, I know what Tag East is. Tag East is the counter-terrorism capability on the east coast of Australia. So 4 RAR Commando now, 2 Commando Regiment.
Yep.
One of my good mates was one of the original plank holders of the Tag. He went and actually was one of the original 12 that stood up the Tag.
Yep.
And so that's what, when Mick is talking about Tag East, that's what he's talking about.
And I was doing it as a radio operator. So we have normal operators, then we had EW operators, then we had SF operators. I wanted to be the SF operator, but I still had to do all the things that SF guys did. So I did. I went down to Sydney, did all the testing I had to do as a SF thing, and do the march and all that sort of stuff. And then it came time for the parachute course, because you had to do parachuting. You had to be parachute qualified, basic, and then water. And it was on my basic parachute course. I was the third person in the stick on the right-hand side jumping out of the Herc. And it was my 4th jump on course, and I just remember, like, they were saying to us, make sure that you hand your risers to the fucking loadmaster when you jump out, make sure he gets it because you don't want it flapping around. And I just remember him, and that stuck in my head the whole time. And I did that, and I handed it to him, but I held on just for that little bit longer, like that 1 or half a second. That's all it took, and my hand got hit with a riser, and as I went out of the aircraft, out of the side of a Hercules doing over 600 kilometres an hour, it's twisted my whole hand, my whole arm has spiraled. So I got see my finger now?
Yeah.
Right, so
I can see that, yep.
It's now got a permanent disfigurement as a result of it. This finger went all the way down here. That finger went that way. This finger went that way. This hand went that way. The thumb went down here.
Yeah, right.
That split, all that split, and all the way up to my elbow joint. I'm falling 1,000 feet, and I'm screaming my head off. We're meant to be like, pull away, and I'm like, screaming. It fucking hurt. It really hurt.
I can see your finger now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Permanently disfigured. And as a result of that accident, or as a result, I wouldn't call it an accident, I just call it a fuck up. As a result of my fucking stupidity, I was not able to continue on with Tag East, or even continue attempting to join.
Yeah, right.
I never ever got the opportunity to continue on with that, and
which is gut wrenching. And then...
it was, but I was in a splint for 8 weeks, and then they broke it again, and then they put it in another splint for 8 weeks, and then they broke it again, and then broke it about 2 or 3 times to refuse it, and then they fused it, and I got sick and tired of it, and I was like, this is like. I'm sick and tired because I had to go under anaesthesia and they'd break it and I'd be like, even though it was numb, it still fucking hurt. But that was that.
Yep.
And so I was looking for the next thing because they were after I did that fuck up, and my only prospect for me as a radio operator were ComSens, Communication Centre.
No, that's not you.
And that's 12-hour shifts, days and nights. They were going to send me to Canberra. And then they're going to send me to Melbourne, and I was just like, no, because I wanted to go to Darwin, I wanted to go to Townsville as a radio operator. No, look, you've been in the ComSend now because of your hand. Look, you're doing really well. You know this stuff, and look, we're going to send you to Canberra, and then after that you're going to go to Melbourne. I was just like, no. So I was looking for the next thing, and sure as shit, end of 2002, I saw the military police on base. They were training up in the married patch, the top part, and I was just like, fuck yeah, I want to do that shit. Like, that looks like the bomb. I didn't know the dogs were up here, sort of thing, because they're out at Oakey.
Yeah.
And so I approached one of the sergeants there, and I'm like, oh, hey, how you going? And they're just like, hey, what's up, mate? What's up? And I said, I want to do this. Like, how do I join? And they're like, mate, you've got to put in an application. You then got to be interviewed, and then we've got to see if you're suitable, and then we'll go from there. So just hand it up to your RSM, and then the next process will happen. I was just like, fucking oath, that's it. Right. So then I had my careers interview with my careers guidance officer, and that's when he told me, he goes, "Yeah, look, we're going to send you to Canberra. We're going to send you to here." And I'm just like, "Oh, actually, sir, I want a court transfer." And he's just like, "Well, why? Like, you've already transferred from EW to here." And I'm like, "Well, technically, yes, but no." And he goes, "People don't like people that transfer a lot." And I'm just like, "Yeah, but I want to do this. I want to be military police." And he's just like, "Why?" "Oh, because they do the dogs, and they do the bodyguard, and they do the detention centre, and they're even got detectives." And he's just like, "But they're fucking meatheads, mate. Why do you want to be a fucking meathead?" And I'm like, the doggy thing looked like fun. And I said, it looked interesting. And he's just like, "All right then, mate. Put in your transfer, and we'll go from there." And so,
Sorry, I'm laughing because Kelly in the background is sighing. So.
Oh yeah, I know. So yeah, I did. I put the transfer in, and I went down to Brisbane for the first interview, because back then you had to be interviewed to see if you were suitable. Because back then there was a lot of infantry and artillery and armoured soldiers that were getting either bullied or something like that, and would transfer intentionally to MPs and then go back and get some retribution. It happened a bit in the late 90s to early 2000s, but so they put a stop to it by interviewing the people going first. That's what I was told they did it. And so yes, I had an interview with the CSM down there at the military police in Brisbane to make sure that I wasn't there for retribution. Asked if I'd ever been in trouble with the military police. I'm like, "No, sir, I'm a radio operator at 7 Sig. And he's like, "Where the fuck is that?" And I'm like, "Kabbalah." And he's like, "Where's Kabbalah?" And I'm like, "Oh, just near Oakey." And he's like, "Oh, Oakey. Yeah, okay, mate, no worries, sure." Like, no, because no one knew about it. Like, it was not that widely advertised. And then, so my corps transfer went through. I was on my sub-2 for corporal in SIGs, and I remember it was a shitty part of the course. I was outfield, and my sergeant instructor came up to me, and he goes, "Hey, Smokey, your corps transfer has come through. You've got to do OJT at Oakey." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool, no worries," thinking, at the end of this course I'll be doing it. And he goes, "Listen, mate, you can go right now if you like. Like, we can drive you back to," because we were at Wide Bay doing our sub-2. And he goes, "Mate, look, you're not coming back to 6A." And I'm like, "Fuck no." Like, "No, of course not." And he goes, "Yeah, look, mate, we'll cut it here, and we'll just send you back." And, he goes, "That way, we can then finish this course for these guys early." And I'm like, yeah, okay, no worries. So that day, put all my shit in the back of the fucking vehicle and drove all the way back up to Kabbalah. And then the next morning I was at Oakey, doing on-the-job training in 2003 with the military police, but at the military working dogs platoon. Yeah, right. So that was 44 platoon back then, 1 MP battalion. And it was the dogs. And I was like, fuck yeah, I love the dogs, And I learnt, and in that OJT, so I did OJT for the remainder of 2003 at Oakey. And I was incorporated into their shift roster because they would do the security of the base. And so I got incorporated to that. And then I learned all aspects of the military police and the dogs, more so about the dogs, because that's all they did there. Because they did a bit of GD policing, but it was mainly just dogs. I was getting taught how to be winched in and out of a helicopter and how to, get out of one and get into one and all this sort of shit. And because it was the aviation training centre, so we were doing that, and we were doing so many things. And then I in 2004 February went down to the Defence Force Police Training Centre and became an MP. That was a good course. I enjoyed it. And then I got posted. I was meant to be posted to Brisbane, but because the course finished in July, I think it was, July, August, and our kids at that stage were going to school. So, and back then, we could talk to the sergeants, and the military police were a bit more accommodating. They were like, "Yeah, look, stay at Oakey until the end of the year, and then we'll post you to Brisbane in 2005. And I was like, "Done, yeah, cool." So then all of a sudden I'm back at home, and I'm now an MP, and I'm driving the military police vehicle home, and I'm the only MP on base. So in the married patch where I lived, we had my mate Stacey Gray, who was another operator. He was a good mate, and then we had the RSM of the regiment. Around the corner was the British exchange officer, and then next door was the US exchange officer, and then we had the Padre on the corner.
Right.
So that was our married patch.
Yep.
And we had a pretty good cohort for a number of years. We were there from 2000 to about 2005.
Yep.
So for 5 years, we built up this really great cohort, and we still, to this very day, still in contact with all of them, bar one RSM. He was a bit of a dickhead. No one liked him. We all hated him.
We'll leave his name out of it.
I'm not going to mention his name, but no, he was not very well liked. Anyway, I was there. I was the only MP on base, and the RSM at that time was I can't remember his name, but he was Zeddy. Zeddy. We used to call him Zeddy. Zeitzen, I think it was. Anyway, he was the RSM, and he was a real football bloke. He just loved his footy because, when I was in SIGs, I used to play a lot of football. So all through my time in SIGs, I played rugby for the SIGs. 2000 to 2005, I played rugby for I played rugby for the SIGs. And so he was like, "Oh, Smokey," because he knew me, Smokey. He's like, "Oh, Smokey, seeing as how you're the MP on base, can you do a bit of a patrol before we come in?" I'm like, "Oh, I've got to approve it with my sergeant," sort of thing. And so it was. Yeah, I just got along better with the RSM kind of thing. But back at base, back on at the Dogs, they were like, I was like, I want to do this. Like, I want to specialise in this.
Yep.
And they were like, well, you've got to do 12 months. Back then, you had to do 12 months as a GD before you could become a specialist in either CPP or dog handling. So I did that. I'd already done my DFCE time, so at the end of my MP course, you do a month at DFCE as a detainee supervisor, and you get that qualification as well. And then I got at the beginning of 2005, got posted down to Brisbane. Family moved down to Brisbane, and I was in Brisbane, and that's where they specialise in CPP. But I also had to put my application in for the Dogs. I wanted to do Dogs. CPP was like a boys' club. I loved it. I wanted to do it. But Dogs for me was just, it was like, that's the shit. Like, I fucking love it. It looks like fun. I'd worked with them all of, 2003 and parts of 2004. I'd spent the most time with them, and I'd had, and all of the doggies were just a great bunch of blokes.
Most doggies are, mate.
Yeah, they were. They
police
were,
or...
That's right,
veteran or...
So I was just like, I want to be a doggy. So that's what I had my mind set on. When I got to Brisbane and we were doing helping out the CPP guys, so even though I was a GD in Brisbane, that was the headquarters for the CPP. We still helped out with their training exercises. And we did some great training exercises, a lot of... surveillance stuff, counter surveillance. We did a lot of driving courses so we could then, like, we went to Mount Cotton and did a quick driver's course, and we even though we weren't CPP, they were like, there's 4 seats available to go to the put your hand up, okay, off you go. So I did all that. I did the motorbike course, and I did all these things, and so I really enjoyed my time in Brisbane. And then, we were doing, like, we'd have these surveillance things where the CPP guys would have to follow us and keep tabs on us because there's close protection and then there's from a distance protection and all that sort of stuff. So they had to, and we had to go to all these places, go to Vic Barracks in town, go to South Bank into the pool, and, go to this place and go to there and go up to Mount Cootha and then come back to base and all this sort of stuff. And
that was part 1 of a 2-part episode with former EW operator and military police dog handler Michael Smokey Dawson BM. Join us tomorrow for part 2.
Thanks for listening to True Blue Conversations with your host, Adam Bloom. Real talk with those that pledge to keep us safe with grit, sacrifice, and determination. See you next time.